Hi, I'm your host Noah Sweet, and welcome to the Sweet Space Podcast, Episode 3. Here we talk about whatever random nonsense myself and my guests feel like talking about at any given moment, every Wednesday. Please remember that the first 13 episodes of this season, re-uploaded from prior episodes, range from a couple months old to a year and a half old, which means a disclaimer is necessary that not all opinions expressed reflect the current opinions of myself or my guests at time of re-upload. Thank you, and enjoy the show. See you next week. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sweet Space Podcast. I am your host, of course. And with me today, I have AmericanElephant, Elephant Power Productions, or Kevin. And I will link his channel in the description. I love his channel, and he's a good friend of mine. And we're here to talk stuff. We're here to talk some very, very interesting stuff indeed. So I'm going to unmute him now. Kevin, you may say hi to the chat. I just realized I actually muted myself on Discord instead of you. So I actually just noticed that I muted myself instead of you on Discord. So if you had decided to talk... Well, actually, no. I had desktop audio turned off on OBS, so it wouldn't have mattered. But it would have been really funny if you just decided to do the equivalent of a photobomb while I was doing the intro. Yeah. You would have at least distracted me is the thing, so it still would have worked, even if your audio wouldn't have been caught. But regardless, now your audio is being captured. I don't want an incident like the Amphibia live stream from like 2 years ago, where like I think 30 minutes of audio got cut because I fucked OBS or something.
Good
but
times.
Yeah. But yeah, Kevin, if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, feel free. The floor is yours.
Okay. All right, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm AmericanElephant. You can just call me Kevin. I run the YouTube channel. Well, right now it's called AmericanElephant, but the ad is Elephant Power Productions, where I make mostly video essays discussing what I want to talk about in a series called Kev Talks. But I've also started this year making animated content and plan to keep up a schedule now of alternating between animations in the odd months, video essays in the even months. So yeah, been pretty busy working on a lot of stuff, especially regarding my living situation. But yeah, I figured at the very least it'd be fun to do one of these given how well our conversations have gone down the past. And yeah, I'm definitely excited or interested at least, to go into this topic given my particular interests. So yeah, this intro's not the best, but I take forever to...
Yeah, it's okay. Mine's probably even worse. So if you think about it, it kind of balances out. Like, it's like negative numbers where like having two negative signs actually multiplies to a positive. So at the end of the day, the audience finds our lack of professionalism endearing, which causes it to actually be a positive viewing experience. So
correct, and since we're highlighting it in a meta contextual sense now, it makes us seem
exactly. We're lampshading, so that basically erases all the problems.
Yeah, and since it's not the best humor ever, we'll get called Reddit humor because that's what fourth wall breaks are now, apparently.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, as long as we acknowledge that, like, it's bad, and we make a point of mentioning how it's bad, that actually erases the fact that it's bad, so you don't have to worry about that.
Correct.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, today we're going to be discussing a very, very obscure niche topic that no one has ever heard of before. I mean, you're going to be shocked when I explain what we're going to be talking about, because it's something that literally no one would be able to guess. I mean, it's something that, like, it's really underground stuff. I'm telling you. Okay, this bit is going on for a long time. We're talking about Marvel movies.
Gasp.
Gasp. If you don't know what Marvel is, which you probably don't because it's so obscure. I mean, some real art house stuff, honestly. Yeah.
Well, that's not what the rest of the internet wants us to believe in terms of quality.
Yes, we are actually being brainwashed into thinking that the MCU is more important than it is. It's actually a really small indie series of obscure niche movies that we're just being brainwashed to think are super popular.
Right.
I mean, can you prove it's not true? That's how it works. If you can't prove something isn't true, it basically is true. I mean
I'm gonna confirm.
that's what everyone on conspiracy YouTube says.
I'm not gonna confirm or deny that. So.
Yeah, Kevin's actually
uh,
part of the fucking brainwashing cabal. He doesn't want me to tell you that, but it's true. Yeah, his
it's
YouTube
funny that
channel is actually a money laundering front for the fucking I don't know what. Okay, this gag is going nowhere, but
funny you mentioned
sorry.
Cabal because there is actually a group of Marvel villains in the comics called the Cabal. So my mind just jumped
That's
to
so good. That's so good. I didn't even know that. I have
that.
no comics knowledge is the funny part about this. I know you're
All
more
right.
of a comics person. I genuinely have read a Marvel comic maybe once or twice in my life, and I don't remember it. Like, I'm only, I've literally only seen the movies and some of the TV shows. So that's my perspective going into this.
Yeah, and I guess to clarify, I haven't read like every single comic in the world. I'm no like I've been here since 616 Spider-Man, which would make me what, fucking 50, 70 years old. No, there's I've definitely been getting more into reading comics and looking into the source material for sure. But I will admit a good chunk of my comic knowledge still comes from the way a lot of us probably did when we were younger of like, oh, I liked that Marvel movie. I'm gonna not buy the comics and instead watched Comic Explained or somebody else with a similar style of content explain it to me to make me realize why this is so genius or
Is comic
shitty for.
explained? Is the comics explained? Is that the guy who I think passed away last year, or is that a different
Uh,
guy?
yeah, one of the people at Comics Explained passed away either toward the end of last year or recently.
Yeah, I think his. I don't remember his name honestly offhand. I think it was like Ben
I think I'm
something.
actually, yeah, I'm on the channel right now. I'm looking through the posts to see if there's any
It was really fucking sad to see that. Even I hadn't never watched this guy in my life, but like it was really sad to see that. Like just any YouTuber death kind of just gets me like that.
yeah, and having seen some of his videos, I was yeah, disappointed to hear he had passed away cuz like some of his recaps of certain big events was my first exposure to a lot of his content like I still remember watching his video on the original Civil War comic event in the hype leading up to the movie and that
Oh,
was like
okay. It was Ben
2016.
Potter, comic historian. I just looked it up.
Mm. Yeah, Ben Potter. The guy was great and had a great voice for what he was recapping and going over. So it's really frustrating that he's gone, but he will be missed. And Comics
Yeah,
Explained is
100%.
still
It's
around. So
really sad,
that's
and I
good.
mean, even as someone who never watched him, I could see like how much of an impact he had in the community. So I guess
Yeah,
now this podcast is retroactively being dedicated to Ben Potter. I don't have a problem with that at all.
I guess
I
so.
think if we're
Yeah,
talking about this subject, we might as well. Like that guy was a
yeah,
real one.
for sure.
Yeah, but anyway,
Speaking.
if you're wondering about the title of this podcast, I'm probably gonna. I haven't really decided on it yet, but I'm probably gonna title this podcast something like "In Defense of the MCU" because that's like a really intense title that like is probably gonna get clicks. Um,
Yeah.
I don't mean to like actively defend the MCU from like a bunch of like specific people I made up in my head because like I'm not gonna be like shooting out straw mans out the wazoo. Like
Uh huh.
I just want to talk about like I guess some general sentiments I've seen and like how I kind of take issue with some of them like around like the classification of the MCU as like quote unquote slop or like creatively void and all that stuff. Creatively void, holy shit, void reference. But anyway, yeah, you get my point. Like I don't mean to like I don't mean I'm gonna be like fucking going off into battle and like saying and like denying all criticism against the MCU
Right.
because trust
This
me, I
isn't
have
like.
tons. Like
Yeah, this isn't an Anthony Gramuglia level takedown of like every single critic of the MCU has been lying to your face. Like, no, this is we got our issues with the MCU, even when we enjoy it, especially in my case, because I'm still a big fan, but I've still had a lot of frustrations, is even recently. So yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's
I mean,
definitely
I consider myself more of a passive enjoyer in that, like, I don't keep up with it anymore, but, like, if I could hear, like, good word of mouth from an MCU movie, I go check it out. That was what happened with Thunderbolts. That movie was fucking baller, so I'm glad I listened on that. Word of mouth
yeah.
is great. It's a great source of finding good movies. If
Hmm.
so, I guess I'll just start the podcast by saying, like, if you have a movie that you want to recommend to people, shout that shit from the rooftops. Like, the more word of mouth spreads, the more, like, great movies are, like, seen. Because that's
Yeah.
also to an extent, I'm mispronouncing all these words. That's also very much to an extent kind of how, like, Barbenheimer took off, besides, like, the meme value of the two movies being released side by side. Um,
Yeah, that's true. They did there was definitely a lot of it was not just yeah, it wasn't just really the memes. It also had this sort of it was just a fun pun that caught fire pretty quickly and as
yeah.
some might argue too quickly given the corporate people trying to get in on the bit with shit like
Oh, God,
remember
yeah. I think
remember
Saw Patrol
Saw
was one of them.
yeah, Saw Patrol. That was, to be fair, that is a hard like combination of words. I respect that. I respect the attempt, but it feels forced regardless. It's oh man,
Yeah, I
that
mean, the
people
funniest
were
part of that
expecting.
is the contrast between, like, the genres of the movies. And I mean,
Yes,
I guess what I was going to was just that, like, besides that whole meme factor, like, Oppenheimer and Barbie, there was so much glazing going around. Like people, like, singing the gushing grannies about the movies to take some words out of Moist Critical's mouth. Um, People absolutely really fucked with those movies, and understandably
yeah.
so. I watched both of them, and they were fire.
Yeah. I will say I've only seen Barbie. I haven't gotten around to Oppenheimer mainly just cuz I have a billion other things to do and a 3-hour movie is lower on my parameters.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any
But yeah.
3 hour movie to watch, it's a pretty good one. I really enjoyed it, but yeah, I think there was something you were gonna say, and I might have cut you off there, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh yeah, no. I was just going to bring up how I the meme briefly like I people were worried it was going to make a comeback for a second because people noticed that originally Avengers Doomsday and Dune 3 were going to be on the release at the same release date. So people thought it was going to be Doomsday,
Oh
which
my god,
the title kind of
Lamau.
goes hard, but it's also like, oh god, that would be so insufferable to go through. Just the discourse alone, the comparison between the films, I'd lose
Oh
my
my
mind
god,
probably.
that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad I'm not on Twitter. Half of the stuff I'm going to be complaining about is just, like, stuff I absorbed through cultural osmosis on Twitter, because
Yeah,
Twitter
that
fucking
sounds about
sucks,
right.
man. I
Yeah.
especially now.
Ugh.
I'm not saying it didn't suck before Musk, but it definitely sucks after Musk, like,
Oh yeah.
to a much greater extent.
Yeah, I definitely I still see people post like insane tweets on Blue Sky sometimes and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm still being vindicated and leaving. I was getting references for my Power Rangers Disney Plus video that I put out in April. I had to go to Twitter to get references of one of the actors talking about the suit auction that went down for all the props on the show. I was on there for maybe 2 to 3 minutes just looking for the right tweets to find or like just looking for the right stuff and I still got pissed being on there, so that was
I think,
really an even
yeah.
bigger sign of yeah, I was right to
There
leave
was one
and
time I went onto Twitter, and, like, one of the first things I saw was some, like, blue check Twitter account posting, like, the date that the golden age of Spain started, and then the date that Jewish people were expelled from Spain, and how they lined up, and how that, like, proves some, like, anti-Semitic, like, nonsense theory. And I got so
God.
fucking pissed. Like, that's the first thing I saw when I opened the app. Like, I wasn't scrolling for a long time. That's just, like,
That's
front and center there. I was like,
that's
and just for the record, if anyone's confused about this, I assume that people who watch this channel and this podcast are sane and, like, not
yeah.
bigoted. But in case this needs to be explained to you, both of these dates happened around 1492, And in case you forgot about this from history class, something else that happened in 1492 was a discovery of the fucking Americas. So I feel like
Yeah.
that might have had to do with a golden age, maybe a bit.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. The
And
amount
also,
of the way
obviously, like if people were bigoted against a specific group of people, they're gonna call a period where that people has no rights the golden age. Like
yeah,
Nazi Germany very
exactly.
much called their period the golden age or something adjacent to that because I mean they believed it was. It doesn't mean it objectively was. Like
Right.
historians nowadays like take like problem with those sorts of like naming schemes for like periods because I mean it really
Mhm.
depends on like is it the golden age for who exactly? But that's just me nerding out about history. It doesn't matter because these sorts of posts are not being made in good faith. It's obvious that like the beginning assumption is anti-Semitism, and they just work back from that. Like they'll justify it however they want to do it, and you can't really refute them with facts because their core belief is bigotry. So they'll just find
Yeah.
another fact to twist to make it look like they're right. But that's a topic for a whole other discussion. We're
Right.
talking about Marvel movies, which is almost as divisive on the internet now,
Yes. Yeah.
almost as mind
It's
numbing as that. Somehow,
right.
the
Apparently,
discourse
because
around this shit is almost as frustrating as that for some reason. It's bizarre, and yeah, I I guess yeah, I'm trying to figure out a good way of like starting us off here. I do want to say, um, for those of you who have been living under the rock, Marvel has faced a rather tough period lately in terms of like enjoying its cultural relevance that it used to have. Marvel was a complete juggernaut, or the MCU, I should say. The MCU was a complete juggernaut from, I think, across the 2010s, I'd say. Um, at the very
yeah.
least, definitely from the mid 2010s to the late 2010s. Um, they were consistently raking in hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, making a profit on almost all of their movies, had extreme cultural staying power. I mean, most people in the world knew what the MCU was, or at least most people who follow Hollywood at all. People were frequently talking about those movies. It would be like one of the first things on everyone's minds. Like, Marvel was one of the big things, the MCU specifically. Um, and it was a widely uncontested position, mainly because of the struggles involved with the DCEU, which is a whole other fucking topic. I
Yeah.
definitely think that like the big issues with that universe were part of the reason why the MCU had such like a dominance in that period. But
Yeah, it was that's part
yeah,
of I think what made the MCU like kept it so on top of everything for a while was that nobody at the time really had another successful cinematic universe, and just when it seemed like others were about to make it or DC was finally going to get their shit together, there was always something that happened or some nonsense. Honestly, I think the only other like probably successful cinematic universe to come out of that time that's lasted, or I guess the only two would be the Monsterverse with the 2014 Godzilla, and then I guess the Conjuring movies, because those spun off into Annabelle, and
yeah,
I
I mean,
think
those are definitely successful, but I wouldn't say they have the cultural like juggernaut sort of aspect
right.
as like the MCU has, which the DCEU
Yeah.
might have had if it had been like handled better. But that's a whole debate for another time. I guess the point I'm trying to make is just that the MCU was fucking crushing it. Um, and
Honestly, that could be another really fun episode to try. Having multiple guests give their take on like, okay, how would they do the DC universe if they were given the
oh,
keys?
that'd be
That could be
great.
fun.
I'd hope to have like someone like Nando V movies on here at one point because he could
Oh
do a
my
lot
god,
for something like that.
that'd
Um,
be so fun.
yeah, but um, I remember when you told me about the fucking Dark Universe and how like abysmal the setup for that was.
It,
Like,
to anybody who doesn't know about the Dark Universe, go watch the video by the YouTube channel It Was a Shit Show. They recently put out a great video dissecting how the Dark Universe fucking crashed and burned before it even took off. And
I assume that's a common theme of their videos, that they talk about troubled productions.
oh yeah, they talk about all kinds of even when the movies are good and do
Name kind of gives it
successful, they
away.
still talk about they have a whole series actually on the MCU and how even though they found success, there was a lot of like difficulties for certain projects that really like some of this there was some stuff I did not know about until watching those videos, despite generally thinking I'm in tune with a lot of MCU production news. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely check them out if you want.
100%. I mean, yeah, the MCU looked untouchable from the outset, but like on the inside, like plenty of productions had like issues and like and all that. Like it's never the same as you think from the outside.
Oh yeah.
I guess the point I was making was basically that yeah, it was a cultural juggernaut in like the 2010s up to like, I mean, Endgame was like the ultimate cultural event, or Infinity War and Endgame. That was fucking insane. Like, I don't think there's a movie experience quite like Endgame. I'm not saying that Endgame is a masterpiece that no other movie can hold up to, because of course it fucking isn't. Like, it's a fun movie. I don't think it's perfect, and of course other movies have lived up to its quality. I'm just saying that it's an experience that has not been replicated, because it is the culmination of so much buildup, so many character arcs, like so many movies. Like it's very much enhanced by the context around it. Like there's individual movies I think are better, but I've never seen a more insane like cap off to like a franchise, I guess I should say. Like I recently saw the Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That movie I enjoyed. I have some problems with it. I don't think that's on the same level as something like Endgame, in my opinion. And I don't think any other movie is, in terms of like a finisher experience for like a cultural juggernaut franchise. So yeah, that's kind of how the MCU was for a long time. And then a little thing called COVID happened. You might have heard of it. So I don't know how much this specifically I mean, obviously it impacted shit a lot, but like,
Oh yeah.
Besides COVID, like just generally speaking, the MCU was kind of left off in a position of like, we already did like the massive team up movie. We did all the movies building up to that team up movie. The entire Infinity Saga is done. Where do we go from here? So
Yeah.
as I understand it, and I don't know if this is commonly understood among people, the MCU started giving more creative freedom to the teams assigned on new projects because there was a desire to see what people could cook and like where the universe could go from here, because things were a lot more linear up until I'd say Phase 4. So we had stuff like in 2021, because 2020 had nothing because it was the COVID year. In 2021, we get shows like WandaVision. We get shows like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We get shows like Loki. We get movies too. We actually get 4 movies that fucking year, which I still think is crazy looking back on. As I recall, it was Black Widow first, then Shang-Chi, then The Eternals, then No Way Home. And
yes,
that was a packed year for MCU stuff. But weirdly, it didn't feel like as climactic because it was the start of something new. So, and then the Marvel kept putting out new stuff. And I guess something felt weird. Not that all this stuff was bad. I enjoyed a good portion of this new stuff, honestly. It's just, I don't know, like, at some point, like, things just stopped feeling uniform. Things stopped feeling like they were building to something linear. It started feeling to me like you had to do homework to catch up on everything because, you know, all the movies now tie into all the shows and whatnot. And the shows seem to be building in wildly different directions. So it feels like the story that's being built up isn't exactly clear. And that is, of course, also a big, you know, that's also hugely caused by stuff like the Jonathan Majors like situation, where like he
Right.
got into like fucking insane legal trouble in real life. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not going to speak much on this because I haven't looked into it very much and I'm not really equipped to talk about it, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
concerning shit and it obviously changed a lot of their plans, a la,
Yeah.
Kang. And that's just one
Right.
example of like, because things are like a lot more decentralized now, they're not based on like a single narrative. You have all these stories branching off in other directions, and I guess Marvel hasn't exactly captured the same sort of like sense it used to have, where it was like building to something great. Now, I question
Yeah.
this narrative a little bit because there were also movies that kind of petered off and did their own thing before Phase 4. But at the end of the day, you could still tell that something was clearly being built up to by the mainline movies in
Right.
the series. And this is less of a thing in the new phases. I do not think this is a bad thing necessarily. I actually think having a bunch of ground level stories that are more down to earth and go off in different directions is really great for fleshing out the world. But I do understand how it kind of alienated some people and made the universe a bit more confusing to catch up to. Um, I'd personally be more of a fan of like self-contained stories that don't really rely on others, like on other tie-ins. Um, I'm actually a big fan of decentralizing it more, where like you have almost entirely self-contained like shows and movies where like you don't have to see anything else to get context. Like I like Deadpool and Wolverine a lot. I hadn't watched season 2 of Loki before I saw it. So with all the
Mm.
TVA stuff, for example, this is like one of the glaring issues caused by this. Um,
Ah.
um, there was like a person in charge of the TVA. I don't remember this character's name, but she was absolutely not in charge when I left off the show. So I was just sitting there like, oh, okay, I probably should have watched that. Um,
Mm.
but like, it's not like
Yeah.
anyone told me I should have watched it. Like,
True.
and
Yeah.
just
And
to be
it.
clear, I have heard I didn't love Loki season 1. It kind of disappointed me. I heard season 2 was great. I believe you guys. I just haven't gotten around to checking it out.
Yeah, I can say as somebody who yeah, as someone who found season 1 kind of overhyped. Like I got why people liked it. I just didn't click with it like everybody else. So when going into season and that was the other thing. Me, it wasn't just me, it was also my family. We in general, we just thought Loki was weird. Like even when there were moments we enjoyed and then there was stuff where we were like, "Oh god, that was kind of boring or off." And then
I
season
loved
2
everything
came.
with Mobius. I kind of wish that he had
Mm,
more. That he had more stuff. I don't
yeah.
know. Like,
But then come season 2, I must say, like, I think generally we all enjoyed it much more. I especially like for a while that was that like for at least around a year, that became my favorite of like the season of the Disney Plus shows. And I remember last year, like I randomly saw a GIF of it on Twitter at one point, and I was like, "Oh my god, I fucking miss this show," even though I was so mad at parts of it when it was the first season. But yeah, I
yeah, I
genuinely
really
think
got to get around to watching that. I mean, considering all the stuff I've heard about it.
yeah, it's definitely I mean it's still it's definitely you can tell they had to change a lot because of what happened with Jonathan Majors, but it still works out pretty well and creates this really nice two-part narrative by the end of it, I felt. And the finale as well. That's the other thing. The Disney Plus finales for these shows have been criticized for being very underwhelming. Of all the Disney Plus finales, I think this is one of the ones that works the best and feels like a great like this is a good conclusion. It's not like, oh, it's exciting because it's setting up the next thing. It's like, no, this is a good ending to this show and what it was trying to do with these characters. So yeah, I do recommend Loki season 2. I think it's a really fun watch.
Right. And
Um,
that's a great segue because the whole thing about how like everything felt like it was setting up something else. But because it felt like it was setting up different stuff. Okay, let me articulate this properly. Yeah, all most of these shows and movies spent like their finales setting up other things. But for me, from the perspective I was looking at it, they weren't setting up the same thing like a lot of the endings of like phase 1, 2, 3 movies were doing. Um so I was a bit more confused and like lost because it felt like so many different things were being set up at once. And it's kind of an issue for me where I'm like, okay, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to branch off and do all of these like stories, you have to be okay with having some of them be self-contained and not be set up for other stuff. Like,
Right.
because you're doing it about halfway here. You're setting up other stuff, but the other stuff is also branching off in ways that are just confusing and difficult to follow. Um,
Yeah. And
so
I think is one of the
that's
as
part of
well
what
with
I think alienated people. Less so than the
yeah,
actual quality of the individual stuff, because genuinely, I think people saying that like the movies have fallen off since phase 3, I genuinely think people are overstating this a bit. Like at least a bit. Like the movie's quality and like I guess the quality of the movies overall hasn't really shifted in my opinion from what it was. Maybe a little bit worse, but it's not like atrocious now or anything. Like you still have like some bangers, you still have some misses. It's kind of just as inconsistent as like some of the earliest MCU runs. Like remember that people didn't really like stuff like Iron Man 2 or like The Incredible Hulk was perceived as boring by a lot of people.
right.
The second Thor movie was completely mind numbing. Like that was always a thing. The inconsistency was always a part of Marvel. It's just I think the confusion as to like all the build up and the different directions it was going. I think that's probably what alienated people more than anything. And the fact that it was split between movies and TV shows, which wasn't really a thing before.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point to make that I realized as you were talking about this. I also think back to because the thing is, the MCU, like the whole TV show thing, technically speaking, the whole like, oh, you got to pay for this service to watch shows thing is not 100% new when you remember that in 2015, or maybe 20. I actually don't. I think it was 2015. That was when Daredevil hit Netflix, and that started the whole trend of the Netflix exclusive shows. But it wasn't just those. They also had Agents of Shield on ABC, and what were the others? There was a Cloak and Dagger series on Hulu, as well as a Runaways series, and then there was a brief experiment where they tried to make an Inhumans show, but that was so bad it just got decanonized by literally everyone, even Marvel Studios itself.
That's
At least
so
since
funny.
literally the only thing that's been acknowledged is Anson Mount's performance as Black Bolt since he showed back up in Multiverse of Madness for that Illuminati cameo. But I think the difference between those shows though and the Disney Plus shows now is that there was this sense of okay, not only was there a little bit of is it really canon conversation with all those, but there was kind of this sense of like okay, because of that is it canon or isn't not sense. They felt more like supplemental material that could help enhance your view of the universe as opposed to like okay, I need to know who this character is. So for example, you could watch Daredevil and gain a deeper appreciation of like the New York setting of the MCU, but you didn't need it to watch like say Spider-Man Homecoming or even Agents of Shield. Like that had a lot of there's some stuff in Agents of Shield and episodes they use to deepen plot points in the MCU. Like apparently there's an episode in the show where it's revealed that characters on Agents of Shield were the reason that there was the helicarrier coming to save people at the end of Age of Ultron. They helped get that for Fury. So it
Yeah,
like
I
that
mean,
stuff is
as I understand it, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was largely following, like, the sect of S.H.I.E.L.D. that remained after the Winter Soldier split. I think it was, like, led by Agent Coulson, who, this is dubiously canon, obviously, but I guess he came
oh yeah.
back despite his death in Avengers.
Yeah.
Like,
It was something where he was brought back to life, and after it was either the beginning of season 2 or ending of season 1 where they had to acknowledge Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where it was revealed, fuck, Hydra is inside a shield. So every season afterward has kind of dealt with that aftermath. And now, mind you, I don't think Agents of Shield is canon anymore because on top of apparently there is like some time travel stuff toward the end of that show that contradicts the time travel stuff they did in Endgame and Loki. But on top of that, they also had a plot line going on regarding the Kree and the end Inhumans. Not the same Inhumans from the show that, you know, people have heard of, like Black Bolt, Medusa, Lockjaw, Karnak, etc., but just a bunch of other like Inhuman lore stuff going on, which I assume is a comic thing. It's a whole story I still don't fully understand. But yeah, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the thing is, but yeah, by comparison, with these Disney Plus shows, they're introducing characters that are going to go to the movies. And that's inherently fine. That's not automatically a bad thing. But the problem is with the way the movies can kind of gloss over certain elements of the shows, or that the shows at times feel like they're meant to set up something for a movie, it can kind of give this sense of, it kind of gives again that homework effect, as opposed to the sense of, oh cool, I know more about this character and I can finally go see the movie. Like if they made a Black Panther TV show before we saw T'Challa in Civil War, if they did that now, it would probably just feel like setup for his appearance in that movie. But if they did it back then, even if it was a weird choice, it would probably feel a little bit more natural, because one, they'd probably make it more accessible to watch. I assume that'd be on like a thing you can watch on TV, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But also by comparison, even if they did do a Black Panther prelude show or something, you don't need to, like, if it plays out the same way it does in Captain America Civil War, you probably wouldn't have needed to see that show to understand T'Challa's story. It probably just would have felt like cool supplemental enhancement material that helps you know more about this character going in. Kind of like how Andor, if Andor came out before Rogue One, it'd probably make people like even more hyped as hell for Cassian in that movie.
Right,
But
yeah, and Andor's a great example of what we're talking about, because you do not need Andor to understand Rogue One, because Cassian's character is set up perfectly fine in Rogue One without it. But if you saw Andor, you absolutely would have a greater appreciation for the movie. And I mean, I
yeah,
do. I rewatched the movie after seeing season 1. I hadn't finished season 2 yet. I have now. It's incredible. But um yeah, watching Rogue One after you know what Cassian's story is really enhances the experience. But crucially, it doesn't leave you confused if you haven't seen it and you watch the movie, because most people watch the movie first. This is how it should be.
right.
Like, you shouldn't have to feel like you have to do homework. Because again, like with that example I used before of Deadpool and Wolverine, like, the one character who is in charge of the TVA, like, I just had to fill in the blanks there because I hadn't seen season 2 of Loki. And I guess that kind of spoiled it for me too. Like, at least a little part of it, like, that character ends up taking over the
I
TPA?
think
Sorry, the TVA.
yeah, I
It's not a
think
big
it's
deal.
actually
I'm just saying that's one example of the problem I'm talking about.
yeah, and especially like by comparison, but now I think as well part of the problem with the shows is that now when you have certain shows taking place in similar locations, you also run the risk of the constant. That this is kind of the weird difficulty the MCU has come into lately. I think the MCU, if I really had to summarize the big problem, it's in this weird state where it feels like everything is like a pro and con simultaneously. So like with introducing all these new characters, right? Like Shang-Chi and Kamala Khan and Echo and and Moon Knight and all these new heroes. I should have just called Kamala Miss Marvel, but yeah, with introducing all these new heroes, if these characters work out, that's great because you have new faces to follow throughout the MCU. The problem is we're still following characters introduced from the end of Phase 3 with characters like Black Panther, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, etc. And they're getting trilogies. And so it's this constant, but then we also have legacy heroes like Anthony Mackie becoming Captain America. So you have this bouncing back and forth between you never know when a certain hero is going to show up. And that's kind of the problem is that, wait, we can't follow up on some of these characters the way we used to. A good video I saw by user Full Fat Videos brought up a great point by how in trying to carry that balance of introducing new characters and carrying over old ones, the MCU is in the state where we're having very wide gaps now before we see some of these characters again. Like, just to give an example, like Shang-Chi was announced to be in Avengers Doomsday, and that's great to see because with the exception of his solo film and one episode of What If Season 3, Shang-Chi has made no appearances in any other Marvel movies since his solo film debut. He's not shown up literally anywhere else. And then the same goes for Sam Wilson. We had Falcon and the Winter Soldier. By the end of that show, he became Captain America. When you compare this to Phase 3, where Steve was like mentioned every other movie, hell, that was the only Avenger in the Netflix shows they said by name. They'd say Captain America. They never say any of the other Avengers. But now by comparison, Sam, he's only appeared in, before Captain America Brave New World, he only showed up in a Disney Cruise exclusive mini adventure thing, another season, maybe an episode or two of What If Season 3, and then he had a quick cameo in Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is not in the MCU, even though it kind of is in a weird, I guess the show is kind of set in its own like post similar events happened but not really kind of timeline. But yeah, that's kind of my point, is that in that case, Falcon the Winter Soldier came out 2021. Brave New World came out just this year, 2025. That's like a 4 to 3 year difference from when we last see Captain America. And I get why that is, but it says a lot about this balancing act now, where it's kind of confusing on how a lot of these characters are going to show up again. And clearly some characters are getting prioritized over others or lost in the shuffle, because Ironheart went through a lot of delays, or at least it had a longer production due to strikes and COVID pushbacks and this, and or maybe not COVID, but just pushbacks going on with its production, because it at least filmed in, I think, 2023, late 2022, definitely around or right after Wakanda Forever came out. And we're only getting it now this year. So that's nearly like a 2-year wait, which on the one hand, good for them. They can make it look as good as possible with the VFX and not crunch people, I hope. But on the other hand, it's like, that's still a good chunk of time to wait for a supposed Iron Man legacy character, even if she's doing her own thing. And then don't even get me started on the fucking Eternals or Moon Knight. We have no idea when those characters are going to show back up again. Like,
Remember the whole meme of the Tiamat hand never being mentioned in any other Marvel thing until Brave New World? But again, that's a 4-year difference.
Right.
I mean, it's more like 3 if you think about when the movies came out. But like, you get my point.
Yeah, and even then, it's still a good point to be made about how even if the meme kind of like got out of hand, what I think people missed about it was that it's for the Eternals fans like us, it wasn't the sense of like, we need every movie to address Tiamat's existence. I was just kind of in the corner like, I don't know, I feel like these big characters introduced in the beginning of Phase 4 who literally they killed a god in the ocean that's just sticking out now. And again, I'm thankful that Brave New World finally addressed that, and I thought it did okay with it, but yeah, it is. I think it says something that these big characters that they hyped up at the beginning of Phase 3 or Phase 4, who were clearly supposed to be like their next big team, their next Guardians of the Galaxy or Thunderbolts, we've barely seen them. We only get, I think, mentions to, I think the only Eternal that has consistently showed up would be, now I haven't seen What If Season 3, but I know there's an episode involving Kingo and Agatha. So, and Kingo has had other references in other stuff. They mention him in Miss Marvel as like an actor in movies, and they had a poster for one of his projects in the Guardians Holiday Special, which was a nice touch. But yeah, aside from Kingo, we've had no other Eternals show up, even though some of them are out and some of it kind of makes sense. Most of them are out in space, but so is Kingo, and he's been mentioned a lot. So it's like, yeah, we have no idea when these characters are going to pop up. And Moon Knight, I don't even know how you could bring him back without pissing somebody off, because Moon Knight fans already have a lot of beef with how that show adapted the comics. So I don't think anyone's going to be perfectly happy with how he comes back, or if he could come back, because what do you do with him? Because you could either, like, because in the show they give him all these magic powers and elevate him from his power level in the comics. So it feels like they're setting him up to be a big Avengers member who does more like supernatural dirty shit. But then Moon Knight could also fit on a street level setting with the Defenders and a War for New York and stuff with what Daredevil Born Again sets up. So I have no fucking clue how this character is going to come back, or if he's even going to come back the way we remember him. Because I genuinely believe Marvel has considered, like, okay, the Moon Knight show didn't get the best reception despite people liking the characters. Should we do a soft reboot of it that makes it so the first season was always a dream and we can be more comic accurate? I'm not going to say they've officially done this. This is just pure speculation. But I think it really says something that, yeah, we keep having all these old characters and new characters coming in. And on the one hand, I like that variety of continuing old stories while introducing new faces, which is what Phase 3 did, and that worked out wonderfully. But in the process, we've kind of created a lot of distance gaps between, like, when are we going to see this character again? When are we going to see this person show up? Or even when it feels like we could have an avenue for those characters to come back, like with Werewolf by Night, I think that, and especially with them working on the Blade movie, or maybe they still are, I don't know, but with that, it feels like they wanted to do supernatural stuff, but do they even have the time for that now, since they're focusing on Doomsday and the street level stuff, and they clearly want to do mutants? Like you said, it feels less, like, refined. It's a bit all over the place, and on the one hand, that's great for creatives because it allows the people in charge of these products to be more experimental. But on the other hand, they're not 100% self-contained nor sequel setup. So it all just feels like a weird limbo space right now with what the MCU is trying to do with the multiverse saga, especially after the Kang nonsense, and what it's also trying to do with individual projects. It's a lot to keep track of now, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. And, like, specifically with Eternals, something I wanted to mention is we still don't know what the fuck was going on with that Patton Oswalt, like, fucking leprechaun-ass guy.
Oh, yeah!
And, Harry Styles, for some reason.
Yeah, we
And
had
that,
that whole end
by the
credit
way, that's
scene
supposed to
with
be
Cheryl
Thanos' brother, by the way. Just for the record. That hasn't been
Right.
followed up on since that movie
yeah,
came out. One
we
of the
have
most
not
bizarre
touched on
post-credit scenes I can remember from the MCU. Like,
fucking Patton Oswalt literally said, introducing, or he literally came on the Eternal ship like, behold, the heir of Titan, brother of Thanos, the legendary Star Fox. And it's like, we have not seen Harry Styles in almost 5 years. It's crazy.
it's like, it's at the
How
point
that
where I'm like, if you're gonna tease things that happen literal years from now, um, is that really the best way you can spend the post-credit scenes? Like, why don't we just get things when they come out with, like, I guess trailers and shit? Like I get it. Like, the previous phases did this too with, like, Thanos, but it was obvious that they were all building up to that. It's like, imagine if only one post-credit scene had Thanos in that entire run of movies. Like,
Yeah.
and we didn't get elaboration on it until Infinity War. Like, there's a difference here because these characters have not shown up since that post-credit scene. And yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating because I guess what happens is I get the sense that Marvel doesn't really know what it's doing. I don't necessarily believe that. But it is a vibe that comes off because they have so many different plot threads going on. So many different, like, complications with handling the direction of the characters. Like, and because directors sometimes just, like, go against each other, like, we had this whole idea of, like, oh, Thor's gonna go off. Thor's gonna go off and join the Guardians of the Galaxy. It'll be the Asgardians. Boom, new movie comes out. He's with them for, like, fucking 15 minutes, and then it's back to a completely different plot, even though it felt like that was clearly being set up. And by the way, we have different opinions on Thor: Love and Thunder. Kevin kind of likes Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't really like it. Let me just say,
like that movie.
As Guardians of the Galaxy would have been fucking peak.
Yeah,
I'm really disappointed we didn't get that. Whether you like Love and Thunder or not, I think it's disappointing because the 15 minutes where he is with them is, like, easily some of the best in the movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I wish that we could have gotten that elaborated on a bit more. Like I know James Gunn didn't want Thor on the team apparently, or somebody wasn't the biggest fan of that, or was it Taika? One of the two, I don't know. But either way, by the end of the movie, like the idea was he'd depart from them, and that's perfectly fine. But like, did it have to be in the first 15, 20 minutes? I don't know. Yeah, it feels like you
Yeah,
could have.
there's a lot of stuff that feels like it's rendering other stuff pointless. That's what I think is most inconsistent about the current MCU. It's not the quality of the projects, because that hasn't changed all that much from like the early days of the MCU. It's the greater context that feels inconsistent. Now, this has been getting, I think, slightly better over the years, but obviously some
Yeah.
other stuff has been like screwing with it, like, Jonathan Majors and all that. Like, rights battles with Sony are making it fucking awful.
Oh my
Like,
god. That's a point I tried to make earlier, is that now, like, compare this to the old Netflix shows. There we didn't know 100% for sure if the Netflix shows were canon or if they were in kind of like a parallel universe, like MCU type thing where they were their own thing. Now though, and here's what's also interesting. You can tell that they weren't going to make them canon at first, because if you watch like how Hawkeye and Echo utilize the character of Kingpin, you can tell, like, oh yeah, this was supposed to be a soft reboot of the character. This was supposed to be a variant played by the same actor, like what they did with J. Jonah Jameson in Far From Home. And apparently, this was confirmed recently. Apparently, the plan for a bit was, in their minds, only Daredevil season 1 would be canon, and then the other 2 seasons would be discarded, which is insane to me because Daredevil season 3 is fucking phenomenal. But okay, and but maybe that's part of why they wanted to decanonize it, because the ending of that literally makes it hard to explain how you build off that, and they still haven't done a great job explaining that. But point is, now that they've made it canon with Daredevil Born Again, I won't spoil too much, but given the shit that happens in that show, now that it's a sense of like, okay, this is in the MCU, there's no debate about this anymore. All right, where the fuck is Spider-Man? Sony, get your shit together. We literally, like, Sony's rights bullshit is literally hurting the story of Spider-Man in the MCU, because we're not allowed to see him most of the time, so that already sucks. And on top of that, with the way Daredevil Born Again ends, it literally affects the entirety of New York. And there is no excuse for Spider-Man to not be involved in the second season of that show. I hope he is, and they're just saving it for a big surprise. But seriously, Sony, you gotta quit fucking around. Keep your Spider-Verse movies, those are peak. Make the games, make a few spin-offs like that Spider-Man Noir series you're working on. That looks great so far. But just let Tom Holland come back for 5 fucking seconds already. It's getting to the point where Spider-Man not being involved in certain New York conflicts makes literally no sense anymore. And that feeds over into other projects. Like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier's climax takes place in New York, same as Hawkeye's. So you can make the argument of like, okay, where the fuck is Spider-Man? Like, even post No Way Home, it feels like he should be active and helping with those situations. And I will say, I think Thunderbolts at least has the excuse, because when all the stuff happens with the Void toward the end of that movie, that's at least like, okay, you can infer that maybe Spider-Man tried to come over and he got taken into it, or he was helping people get away from it. You can infer he's off doing something else. But with some of these other shows, it's like, these feel like fights that Spider-Man should be directly involved in, but we can't do that because for some reason Sony is like, no, we gotta hold on to the rights of this character. We gotta make all these solo films about villains and secretly turn them into anti-heroes instead of villains. And Sony just wants to like make a forced Spider-Man villain universe that is in the MCU, because on top of the whole thing with fucking Michael Keaton's Vulture showing up at the end of Morbius, it's still one of the most annoying scenes in that movie. On top
it's
of that,
actually iconically bad. Like,
yeah. But on top of that, I found out there's actually official concept art for Madam Web of Tom Holland's Spider-Man fighting the main villain atop a building. Now, on the one hand, a part of me wants to say, okay, this could just be stand-in stuff, because there was actually concept art for Shang-Chi that was clearly just, okay, we need characters to fill spaces. Because it was concept art of the, like, that skyscraper superhero fighting ring thing in Shang-Chi. And in concept art piece, it showed Deadpool, a character they did not have in the MCU, fighting Proxima Midnight, one of the Black Order who's already dead after Infinity War and Endgame. So a part of me wants to think, okay, that was just stand-in concept art. But on the other hand, I'm like, after all the teasing Sony has done with like, oh, we're going to put a spider in the trailer, that'll get butts in seats, with all their villain films, and then that they even made that fake shot for the Morbius trailer of Morbius walking by like graffiti artwork, which is really a screen cap from the PlayStation Spider-Man game, of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man with text that said murderer. So clearly they wanted, and that feels like it was meant to tie into No Way Home after the Mysterio allegations were put out. So clearly, like, it wants to be in the MCU, but it's fucking over the MCU in the process. So I honestly wonder if Marvel's like, you know what, we literally can't do that if you won't let us use this character where it feels like we should. So no, you don't get to play in our sandbox that way. It's just so complicated and frustrating for no reason, and it makes these projects where when it feels like they should be interconnected, they're not, and it's just so weird. There's no other way to put it.
I mean, that's such a big factor, and I mean, I guess the point of all this preliminary is just to establish I understand why people feel the way they do about the MCU now. It is to an extent
Same.
how the reason I feel the way I do about it, where I'm not like eager to keep up with it as I used to be. Another reason is I've just grown older and my interests naturally change over time. So I no longer feel like I have to see movies because they have the Marvel label attached to them. I'll just see movies that I feel like I have interest in. Like, for example, Thunderbolts I had a lot of interest in because of positive word of mouth. And it followed some characters who I thought had a lot of potential. And it did feel like a return to form of like something like an early MCU movie. Because, yes, to an extent, you had to know the backstories of some of the characters. You had to do your homework. But you didn't... Okay, this is going to sound really confusing. Yeah, it would be a good idea to go back and watch all that stuff, but you don't necessarily have to understand the premise of the movie or like the characters involved, for the most part. Like, I don't know if I'm articulating this properly, but like, it felt like I guess it felt relaxing in the sense that like I didn't have to worry about some of the other Marvel stuff. I'm like, stuff gets thrown in here and there, but like, it's not critical to the story. Like, you get the idea. The characters are so well established in that movie specifically that you just get the idea, at least most of them. Obviously, Taskmaster, not really. But like for like the characters like Yelena, for example, or Alexei, or to an extent John Walker, Ghost, like, and of course Bob, like all those guys. And I mean, you know Bucky, you're gonna know Bucky no matter what because he's such a crucial part of like the older movies.
Right.
So like to me it works really well because like it's taking the foundation of these characters and like it's putting them into like this very intimate story where you like really see their personalities shine, and it does feel like so down to earth like some of those older movies. It doesn't feel needlessly confusing. It doesn't feel like you have to watch like 5 billion things just to understand the characters because they do a great job establishing them in this movie. It's like it's just a fun time. It's exactly what Marvel succeeds at the most because Marvel movies are objectively very fun to watch. Like, I'm sorry to say this for people who are going to get mad at me for this take, but like objectively they are, and they're most often designed to be. Like people, you know, the people behind these movies, like the executives, I mean, want these movies, you know, to draw people into the theaters, and the people who make these movies want to make them a fun time because this is also going to shock a lot of people because of the discourse I see around it. But you know, people actually enjoy making movies, right? Like, by and large. Yeah. Like, even movies that you think are slop, a lot of people enjoy making them. And this is the main
Yeah.
point. I don't personally like the categorization of a lot of the current MCU output, or even just all of the MCU's output, as slop. And I get why
Right.
people will refer to it as slop, because in this context it's supposed to mean like a movie that isn't really like meant to be incredible. It's meant to be like a fun like popcorn flick,
Right.
and like you're not supposed to think about it super hard, and it's mostly the movie was greenlit to make money. But first of all, that's all movies. What movie can you think of that wasn't greenlit to make money? At least as a primary reason. Like
Right.
that's I get that it's definitely more so a thing in like the movies under like the biggest corporate umbrella, but that also applies to movies that you would never call slop, because a lot of the movies that are great that people have been like shouting out, like they too have been made by major studios. Like Barbie
Right.
was widely liked. That was made by Warner Brothers, which if we're going to be calling any company a slop factory, like you don't think Warner Brothers qualifies as that? Um, Now Warner Bros has tons of good stuff under its belt. It's just they seem to hate that it exists. They seem to hate having that stuff available and want to get it
Oh yeah.
want to remove it for tax write-offs. And that's another
Right.
aspect of this. My wording's kind of all over the place. My key argument here is it's just super reductive to call these movies slop. If you don't like them, that's fine. But like these aren't cinematic atrocities. These aren't, I mean, most of them aren't. These aren't movies that are like, creatively devoid of like all things. They're not like fucking like, not all of them are just like complete wastes of time artistically. Like, I just think it's so
Yeah.
overstated, and it just speaks to like someone working backwards from the conclusion of, oh, I don't really like these movies, so here's a moral reason why I don't like them. Because this whole mindset, as I've seen like on Twitter and like other social media sites, is these movies are slop, so if you watch them you fundamentally have bad taste and you are rewarding bad media. And this is where I really get pissed, because
Yeah.
oh my god, I mean, I don't want to like come in swinging with all of like my whole entire thesis right away. I'll get to the point I'm trying to make about this a bit later. But
Right.
I mean, to argue that this entire like umbrella of like projects, like all of them, are just under the same slop category because you don't like the company, and therefore you invalidate the work behind every one of these movies from all the people who are having fun with it and who are like genuinely putting their effort into these. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like the executives are really cynical. Like all of these movies from their point of view are a money-making scheme. But like
Right.
generally speaking, executives executives just want the movie to be successful. Like, and to what
Right.
extent they'll interfere and like hamper the creative vision is completely dependent on like whether that specific executive or like committee of executives thinks, okay, should we let them cook or should we step in a little bit? Um, so you have a bunch of different situations, like, like with Barbie, they kind of, I think they mostly let Greta Gerwig kind of cook with that, like over at Warner
Right.
Bros. And that led to a massive success for them.
Yeah.
And for something like Thunderbolts, I think they had a pretty good approach where I don't really know what happened in the behind the scenes, don't get me wrong, but from how it feels just watching it, something like Thunderbolts is like, I don't get the sense of like a troubled production with like executives overbearing. I think they just let the writers cook, let the director cook, let the actors cook, let them make a damn good movie, and they trusted it would do well. They didn't even give it a hugely inflated budget like so many of these movies have. And despite the
Yeah.
fact that it has a comparatively low budget, it looks crisp. It works greatly as a movie. Super good script, screenplay, great acting, tons of like great emotional beats. Like it's just a solid movie that gets better the more I think about it. And like it was made under this supposed slop factory. Another example is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is actually the one
Yeah.
that I notice gets exempted from these categorizations all the time
True.
because people have like a special attachment to James Gunn. And I get it. I fucking love the guy's work. But
Oh yeah, I will say Guardians. I have to say as well. I totally get why that one is like considered the exception because at least for me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is now my new favorite MCU movie. It's one of my favorite. It's easily one of my new favorite superhero films. I consider it like some of the peak of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I get why it often gets considered. I understand why it ends up on this
oh,
high
it's an
pedestal of like
amazing movie. I genuinely think
which
that my top 3 Marvel movies are just the Guardians trilogy. Like
honestly, yeah, because
the
those
order
mean so much to me and they're
the
so fucking
order
good. Like,
yeah, I mean the exact order I can't really figure out because I don't know if I would put 2 over 3 or vice versa.
mm,
1 is the lowest for me. It's still amazing, but like the main thing
yeah.
that holds it back is that the villain is kind of like just serviceable, whereas like the villains in
From
2
what
and 3 are excellent.
from what I've gathered, yeah, apparently James Gunn himself, like even he has apparently gone on record saying like he hated doing anything related to Ronan in that movie and is disappointed with that. He likes everything else about the final cut of Guardians, but he is not satisfied with how he handled Ronan.
Yeah,
Probably
I don't
because
know.
he
I
did not
didn't
like
think it was bad. I just thought I thought he was an okay villain, like a serviceable villain for the
same.
story, but not like
I thought
not a standout.
he wasn't yeah, he wasn't a deep character, but I think he served his purpose well for what the film was going for. I thought Lee Pace did a good job overacting with the role, going for the big booming voice. And they at least gave him like a good presence. When I was young watching Guardians of the Galaxy, I at least felt like Ronan was like an actually hard threat to stop because the film did a good job making him out as this like dangerous
Yeah, he had
psychopath,
aura in a
even if
sense.
it made him yeah, even if it made him generic evil with like the power stone at least gave him a lot of like create like threat level to him because you have this thing that could destroy entire planets if it touches organic matter, and then you have this psychopath who wants to genocide an entire people wielding it. Like that is at least a scary thing to overcome. And even though he's definitely the weakest of the villains, especially when compared to Ego and High Evolutionary, I still think he's a lot better than most MCU fans give him credit for as a threat. It's kind of the same with it's not the same thing obviously, but I feel the same way about Yellow Jacket in Ant-Man. I actually quite like Yellow Jacket in that movie, even though a lot of people consider him one of the weaker ones, but I thought what they were going for works a lot better than most act like it does. But yeah, even though I get why Guardians Volume 3 is put on a high pedestal, and I understand why people say we should make more movies like this. Believe me, I'd be happy if every movie was as peak as Volume 3, but not every movie can be. And this is where we kind of come into the issue here, which I can let you elaborate on if you wish.
Yeah, I guess like the whole point I was trying to say was just like I get why people call these things like slop, but it just feels kind of disrespectful to me because like I just want you to think about I guess I just want people to think about this. Like when you're calling a movie slop, like it's not going to like hurt the feelings of the corporation or the executives who like made all those like creative decisions that you don't like,
Exactly.
that I don't like either. Like, but I mean, having all this discourse about like how slop the movies are, I mean, what that does get to, like, what that sort of thing is more likely to get to, I'm not saying it does, but what it's more likely to get to is the film crews themselves, like the actual workers who like put their all into
Yeah.
films like this. And
It's kind of
trust me, don't respond to me. I don't know why I'm acting like this is an active argument I have. I'm trying not to strawman anyone, but like
right.
I have run into people who kind of act like this, so that's what I'm basing this off. Like, please don't act like these guys are just there for a paycheck and they're actively miserable doing these movies. Because I promise you
Yeah.
that's just not true. Like there's a really good scene in Succession. I don't know if you've seen Succession, Kevin, but I'm just gonna bring
I
it
have
up
not.
for this is not really a
So,
spoiler, but um
okay.
it's a very vague spoiler. I'm not gonna name any character names. There's a character who gets promoted to head of ATN, which is like a news network under the main company, Waystar Royco. And ATN is usually portrayed as like a bit of a propaganda outlet for like Waystar Royco, where it's like it's slanted in favor of the CEO, it's slanted in favor of the Roy family. Like It gives them positive coverage. It's like very selective about stories and whatnot. Like it's definitely not the most honest like news. It's basically a parody of Fox News, right?
Yeah.
But then this guy comes in to ATN and he's the new head and he basically meets up with the team and he's like, "All right, guys, what complete lies and bullshit are we going to be spewing today?" And then like everyone just looks at him like he has 3 heads. And they're just like, "Dude, you know we're here to tell the news, right?" Like, and what the point they make to him in that scene is basically, yes, there is an agenda at play somewhat with like what we choose to cover exactly and like how exactly we choose to cover it, but it's a lot more subtle. Like we still fundamentally enjoy like the process and the job of like relaying the news to people, and we still do take it very seriously. So like it's a whole thing of like, yes, the outlet is definitely slanted. It's not the most honest, but it isn't like lying 24/7 because
Right.
these people have jobs that they care about. And a lot of them, sure, some of them are corporate drones, but some of them actually care about the job and like doing right by it.
Yes.
It's
And
usually
it,
high
I
up
mean,
executive decisions that cause this sort of like disconnect where like the media isn't covering the things that are supposed to be covered. Or there's like different like editorial changes that kind of make it more dishonest. It's not usually the reporters, it's not usually the crews, it's like those guys up at the top who like kind of want to slant it. And there's some natural bias in the crews as well, but like it's not like it's very banal and it's not like an active like, oh, let's fucking lie because we actually hate our jobs and we just want the paycheck. Like that's not how most
right.
employees actually talk to each other or like think while doing their jobs. Like from what I
Exactly.
understand.
And to go back to your point about how when a lot of these about a lot of these comments about movies typically go more toward the people actually on the ground working on them as opposed to the executives or the studio. If I could make a comparison, every now and then, you'll see somebody like protest against, like, say, McDonald's, and their solution is let's trash a fucking McDonald's restaurant, and it's like, I get what you're trying to do, but that doesn't actually do anything beyond make a mess for the low-paid people to clean up. Like that's
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think
hurt.
there was a protest against I forget which fast food place this was exactly. I think there was one protest I saw where someone put fucking live rats in the restaurant and caused like a massive like public health crisis. And I'm just sitting here like, what do you think you're accomplishing? Like this isn't
Yeah,
praxis, dude. You're actually just making it harder for like all the workers and the people who are at the restaurant for no fucking reason. That's not going to
yeah.
like I get that maybe it's supposed to be symbolic. And yeah, I mean that technically stops the costs, but like why don't you just not buy from them and encourage more people to not buy from them instead of like
R-
put fucking rodents in the restaurant and like cause problems for people. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that these are the same thing. Like obviously calling movies slop is not the same as like actively causing health crises in
Yeah,
restaurants. But like in a
for
metaphorical
sure.
sense, I kind of see like a common root between them where it's like, yeah, I'm going to solve this problem by trashing the movies instead of the executives. And you're allowed not to like the movies. I don't care.
Right.
Okay? I don't
And
like some of the movies from the MCU,
yeah,
especially from the newer MCU like catalog. I just don't
right.
call them blanketly slop and creatively void because I understand that there was creative input on those movies and people did enjoy working on them and there is actually artistic value to them. Like
Right. Like even fucking like even
I'm
Secret
sorry,
Invasion.
people are going to turn around on this so fast if we ever get to a point where people are actively making AI movies because then you'll see what movies with zero creative value actually fucking look like. Like
Yeah.
people are going to owe a massive apology to the MCU once that happens, which is kind of funny because you just brought up Secret Invasion and I remember they used generative AI in like the credits for that. But
Oh
like you get the
God.
point, right? Like the actual movies, the creative like value of the movies, I think people are going to be more appreciative once if like we ever get to a point where we're getting actively AI generated movies in theaters, which
Yeah. I.
personally I'm never going to see one because why the
Oh yeah.
fuck would
No.
I? But
No.
like if anyone does see it and gets a front row seat at how fucking at how truly slop those are, like you're going to be looking back at the MCU and you're going to be like, I apologize, I wasn't familiar with your game.
Exactly. And it's also one of those things where even if like something like, and this is actually something I kind of want to tackle for a second because I just thought of it. This mindset, I've noticed it seems to apply more to like video game discourse, but it can totally be applied to film discourse. I'm sure you've seen the fucking like the leave the multi-million dollar company alone type memes. And I do
I,
think
I
that
I I don't like that image, honestly. I mean, I get the point of the image, but it's one of those images that gets so often misapplied. It's like the fucking SpongeBob roller coaster image,
yeah, oh my
or
god.
like the Encanto cornplate thing. Like those things can be funny and like make sense in some contexts, but like,
Yes.
um, it's just to give you an example of one of the misuses of this like "stop defending the billion-dollar company" meme. Um,
Yeah, I
I
have an
responded to
example of
like a
the
tweet. I responded to like a viral tweet once when I still used Twitter, where someone was just like yapping about how like, oh, Mojang developers are fucking lazy, pathetic like pieces of shit because we don't have like
oh,
good Minecraft updates. And I'm like, guys, and I just said, guys, leave the fucking devs alone. It's a corporate thing. Like Microsoft is weird about like wanting to like add more stuff or like keep stuff out of Minecraft. And like the corporate side of Mojang is like kind of weird. But it's not the devs' fault. Like, stop calling the
yeah.
devs lazy. There's no fucking circumstance I can think of where that's the actual reason why a problem exists with a game. Um, Obviously people fuck up, but like calling them lazy is just nuts to me, and it just doesn't really capture the real problem, I think, because yeah, there's tons of criticisms to be made of like corporate Mojang, tons to be made of Microsoft for sure, and their handling of Minecraft, but that's not on the devs. Like the devs aren't in control of this stuff. And then when I pointed that out, someone posted that fucking image saying don't defend the multi-million dollar company. And I just sat there dumbfounded because I was not defending the company. I was actually
Right.
criticizing the company. I was
Yeah,
defending the people who worked there.
you were making it fucking clear that you were specifically highlighting the fact that the people that you're calling lazy are probably not the ones who are causing issues that are frustrating you or that who don't have control over the entire situation regarding Minecraft updates, but it's defending a corporation. Like, okay, whatever. That's such a dumb straw man thing. Like I feel I've kind of felt that way sometimes when I oh my god, I still remember I have two examples that kind of relate to this. So going to the SpongeBob roller coaster example, right? Um I remember there was a tweet somebody made that was like, "What's the most uncomfortable you felt watching a movie?" And I saw a user quote with a quick clip of a scene from Nope. I won't say what it is, but when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I agreed. Because the scene I'm thinking of genuinely fucks me up and disturbs me the more I think about it. The implications of it really like viscerally terrify me and make me like sad and scared and disgusted. And then that person, they ended up replying to themselves because they said with text that said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And it was a picture of that tweet with the clip, and under it was a reply of the SpongeBob roller coaster picture. All I'm gonna say is, if you know the context of the clip they posted, it's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" That is insane. That
What?
is it is ridiculous. It was so
Nope
dumb.
was not the
Uh,
movie I thought you were going to mention when you started making that point, when you started bringing that up. Like, that's not one of the
Interesting.
movies I would perceive as, like, being, like, I guess pigeonholed as that sort of, like, SpongeBob roller coaster, like, baby's first scare kind of thing.
Oh
Like, that's
no.
more what I
Hell
think,
no.
like, people think FNAF is, or, like, I don't know, stuff that's, like, super popular. I mean, Nope's
It's
popular, but, like, stuff that, like,
yeah.
children know, like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
that
about? Like sort of like Poppy
yeah, that
Playtime
thing
even. That would be a great
something like
example.
yeah, something like FNAF or Poppy Playtime or Goosebumps. I'm not saying Nope is like these things. I don't think it is. But in discussing examples, yeah, stuff like that where it's one of those things where despite the censorship bullshit that we constantly go through with kids media and animated stuff and whatnot, we still have stuff like Goosebumps and Poppy Playtime, FNAF, where we can literally like I actually learned about this recently. Like the FNAF books will literally have descriptions of like children dying, and yet we can't in the games there's like a sense of, oh, it's holding itself back, or it's just censorship with like what scares kids and what doesn't is so fucking weird because like FNAF and like just to put in comparison how crazy censorship for this kind of stuff gets. My school, the school I used to go to, before I started homeschooling, we used to do these we used to do when the movies were popular, they did like Hunger Game events in the gym. And mind you, it wasn't like recreating scenes, it was just sports games using Hunger Games like naming and terminology. But I think that says something like, wait, so a movie franchise where children are killing each other in a competition for the wealthy elite is allowed to have events made at schools, but then we have stuff like, oh, we can't put this horror thing in this cartoon, or we can't do this or that, or say this word. It's like, what? What?
Like
Okay.
that whole long list that Alex Hirsch posted at one point about like Disney's notes trying to like
Oh
censor
my
some of the
God.
stuff,
Yeah.
including Gravity Falls.
That
Like,
that's yeah, that shit is why I want to that's another reason I want to be independent as an animator. I don't want to put up with studio notes like that. But yeah, to pull up
yeah, and when
to
you
pull
think
up
about
another
stuff like that, like it kind of puts it in another perspective where like I guess you have to start. I so I want you to think. I guess if you're whoever's watching this, I just want you to think critically about the stuff you watch. And that's the stuff that you like, and it's the stuff that you don't like. It's the stuff that you think is like super highbrow cinema, and the stuff that you think is quote unquote slop. Like with Marvel movies,
yeah,
when you think a Marvel movie sucks, or like you think it's like creatively like hindered or something, why don't you like just start thinking about why that is? Because instead of like writing it off as like not worth thinking about because it's like a lesser form of cinema, why don't you just ask yourself the question, what didn't work about this movie, and like what sort of factor behind it like could be mediated in the future, like remedied to create better movies and like a
true.
better future for the
And
cinemas. This is
and
what
maybe
pisses me
to
off about these people. It's just they seem to be all negative, no solutions.
right. Yeah, that's actually that's a very good point. Yeah, cuz even when people like this who are very critical of the MCU make solid points of criticism and things where it's like, "Oh yeah, I can agree with that." There's also this sense of like they'll be passionate when they're angry, but they won't care enough to be like let's suggest ways to fix this, or let's suggest opportunities on how to alter this idea. They'll just be like, okay, I ranted about this thing I hate. I don't give a shit about the MCU anymore until I go watch the next thing that's going to make me mad because I need YouTube money. I like, there's this sense of, I don't care. It's all this or that. And on top of that, because the MCU's problems are so scattered
Yeah,
and
I
like,
don't care, except I'm gonna keep fucking making the videos anyway and keep talking about it. You can have it one of two ways. You can just not talk about the MCU. If you think it's so worthless and so creatively void, just don't address it. Um,
yeah,
or you can criticize it and you can offer solutions. You can shout out movies
right.
you think are better. You can like talk about how like the industry could be improved, or you could do what I like
Right.
to call the critical drinker strat of just continuously talking about things you think are shit while offering like zero positivity for money. And this is really
And even
funny
when,
because like I just laugh thinking about how like even his own audience fucking ate him up over the Thunderbolts review because he took a swing for the king and he missed. Like,
yeah, and even when and what's also so funny about that as well is it is also funny when you consider like this is a thing I think a lot of people are thankfully starting to wake up to. Or maybe I say wake up as if we've all been brainwashed, but I think it's something people are more realizing now that they've had time to reevaluate a lot of these this thing sucks actually kind of critics where the after going through all this stuff for years of what like this shit and all, like tearing down all these this thing is bad because it's woke kind of statements. I think what's so interesting now is that a lot more people are starting to realize, and I kind of have to thank Critical Drinker in a weird way for this. Critics are not always filmmakers. critics can't always do what the people they're chewing out are doing. And I think people are starting to have a little bit more self-awareness of that when they criticize media, and I think that's going to be genuinely better for the long run. Like I watched this great video yesterday. I highly recommend it if you're a like in the FNAF scene. It's by a user named, let me double check this. It was created by a user named Cheese Yeen. Yeen as in like hyena. And they made a video called "The Worst FNAF Game Could Have Been Peak." And it's a video base of this guy basically going, "Hey, so I think Security Breach is the worst FNAF game, even though I fucking really like it for some reason. And I'm gonna go over why I don't think the game is scary and why I think it fails in a lot of areas as a game, but then end the video on like a way to like restructure the game while keeping it as close to what was put out." And I love the video not only because it was genuinely funny and interesting to hear someone's perspective on this, of like someone who dislikes who thinks the game doesn't work but also genuinely enjoys it. But they offered a solution. That's the thing. They offered a sense of like, okay, if we were to
Yeah,
make a
I mean,
like
yeah, for sure. And I lost my train of thought on this. I was thinking of something. I'm just gonna ask if I cut you off at any points, if there was something you wanted to say. I think there was another example of the whole, like, I think SpongeBob roller coaster image you wanted to bring up that I don't think we got to. So I'm just gonna let you do that while I think of what it was I was gonna say,
um, wasn't
if I
as
may.
direct as like it wasn't as direct as the SpongeBob roller coaster thing or like the other stuff. But since we're talking about MCU things, I remember for context to viewers who aren't watching this, back in I'm going to say either beginning of 2023 or late 2022. I don't remember which one. But either way, I made this, I'll admit, a little flawed tweet where I was basically like, if you criticize MCU Ironheart for being able to build her suit with her resources, but not Peter Parker for creating impossible webbing that still doesn't technically exist yet as a 15-year-old high schooler with access to limited resources, it was basically a point about how people don't criticize a Riri for doing certain shit. Like, it was basically trying to address the criticism of people think Riri building an Iron Man suit in the MCU is unrealistic to do on her own without direct access to Stark Tech. Even though if you fucking watch Wakanda Forever, you learn that one, she goes to MIT, so she has technical know-how. Two, when she's away from Chicago, she works out of this, I think it's a repair shop or like warehouse with like technological parts, one or the other. But on top of this, she also has a stepfather who at a young age taught her how to like work with machines and technology a little bit, or at least building stuff. And she mentioned she'd been working on the suit on and off for years. And I'm not talking about the Chicago Red final Ironheart suit or the Chicago Bulls Red Ironheart suit during the Wakanda Forever climax. I'm talking about just the base Mark 1 suit where her face is exposed and it looks like she's wearing headphones and she's got like construction equipment bars or whatever near the arc reactor and stuff. That suit was made on and off by herself for years, and it's an insanely basic Iron Man suit, but people still called this character like she's the bestest ever who makes no flaws. And so the tweet was basically trying to be like, we're really going to criticize Riri for doing this when it's perfectly reasonable how she could with what the MCU tells us. But we're not going to criticize Peter Parker for making impossible tensile strength webbing that was basically the point I was trying to make. But I did it
Yeah,
a
and I
little
mean,
bit.
like, Tony Stark built this in a box of scraps, you know? Like, he literally built his
Yes,
first suit in captive by terrorists,
that's my
when he had
fucking
access to
argument.
almost no resources.
Tony
But no
Stark
one
can
would
build it with
criticize that, right?
yeah, Tony
Um,
Stark can build assorted weapons. Tony Stark can build his first suit out of assorted weapons in a cave in the Middle East. But we have a character
Tony
in a
Stark built
cave.
this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Exactly, but we can't have Riri build it, even though she has access to resources in more sterile, manageable environments and has also a similar and has her own like it. Like, that's the other thing as well. People forget Tony's super genius is glossed over in the film. Like they literally have it in a montage. They mention him being the son of Howard Stark and quickly showed he was a genius at a young age. But nobody has a problem with that because that like I really don't know. It's even worse in the comics. I won't explain how, but there's some weird shit regarding Tony's backstory there that I think has been retconned. But yeah, so point is I worded it wrongly, and while there was plenty of people that liked the tweet, I think it got over like 2 or 3,000 likes, which did make me feel kind of happy, but also like, wait, this many people got attention of it. That led to people like quoting the tweet and saying like this was a bullshit criticism, this was dumb, people replying it. But what frustrated me was when I tried going in the replies to be like, okay, I've tried hearing some people out, let me correct myself a little bit. There were still people in the replies like, bro, shut the fuck up and take the L. I'm like, I'm trying to agree with you, dickheads. I'm trying to hear your points out and be like, okay, new information has come to light. Here's how I'm processing this. And you're telling me, no, shut the fuck up. You don't get a second chance.
Something
like,
I've noticed.
What?
Something I've noticed about like websites like Twitter and social media more broadly is that it's a zero-sum game, right? Like,
yeah,
every tweet has to be either 100% right or it has to be the worst thing ever produced, and you can't go back on it, and it's a permanent stain on your record. And
right.
I'm not talking about like edgy jokes and cancellation or whatever. I'm just talking about like people having like incorrect takes on things. Like,
yeah,
in the sense of like, oh, you make one bad point and then suddenly your entire argument is invalidated and like nobody will ever budge on this. It's like, and it's not just arguments too. It's also like perceptions of things, like, and specifically in regards to this podcast episode with like Marvel movies and like the whole like the slop debate. It's like, it's exactly this zero sum thinking that like I think gets people to that conclusion where like, because there's like bad corporate shit in like how Marvel movies are produced, that means that the entire thing, every single thing, is just a worthless product with no creative vision, and like there's no artistic value in it whatsoever, because it can either be peak or it's complete total fucking ass and it's devoid of any meaning, or like, and you shouldn't bother like deriving any sort of like artistic value from it. And
yeah,
I guess what pisses me off is because these people also have like an air of like being critical thinkers and like wanting like good thought-provoking movies. And like I get it, like, yeah, a popcorn flick is fun, but like media engagement and like media literacy, I don't know if I love the term media literacy, but you know, you get what my point. You get my point though.
yeah,
Thinking about media is good, and like having media that you can think about is good. But to just have this whole like wave off like brush thing where you're like, oh, but there's entire pieces of media that you don't actually have to think about because they're just slop and bad and creatively bankrupt, and you shouldn't even talk about them because they're that bad.
right.
I'm just sitting here like, even bad things, you can learn a lot from them. Like,
Yes.
genuinely, I don't care if you think every single Marvel movie is a complete pile of dog shit. That is your prerogative. But you should still think about them to an extent. Like, if you want to engage with media, like, even stuff that has a lot of corporate meddling and like its creative vision is hindered, like a lot of Marvel movies are, like, there's still so much to learn from that, and there's so much to get from like the production and like all the different elements of like how the movie is made. Like, that stuff is interesting, and you should think about it, because if you want better media, you have to think about the media that does exist, not just the good, but also the bad and the quote-unquote slop. And here's where I want to get to. Sorry, you go first.
Yeah, I was also just gonna say, I feel like a lot of this stuff also kind of like that mindset of like, if something has corporate shit going on, it's all slop, or it doesn't count, or we can't give it too much credit on this or that front. I think a lot of that also kind of comes back around to the mindset that I've seen over the years with creators that focus more on the writing of some stuff. Now, I am not saying in any way that if you choose to focus mainly on writing for critical feedback, that's perfectly fine. I get it. I do it sometimes too. I see the benefits of it 100%. That said, I have grown to really dislike when people say nothing else in the film nothing else in a movie or a project you're working on matters if your writing sucks. And personally, I find that kind of insulting because to put in perspective, for those that missed it when I said this earlier who don't know, I'm an animator. Animation is a visual medium where you're not just filming actors in front of a camera, you have to create shit from scratch. And the funny thing about animation is that it's not always just write a script and then go animate that. No, sometimes you literally need to carve out the visuals and storyboarding and thumbnails and animatics. You and just even literal gags and errors and insane moments, you have to work through the visuals to find the writing sometimes. So when people like if
Even
somebody
even
fucking
even in live action, even in live
yeah,
action, there's still I cut you off. Sorry. You can continue
yeah,
what you
and
were
no,
saying in a
it's the
second.
same
I just
point.
wanted to say, even in live action, there's so much involved in like the cinematography of movies that like communicates as a language of its own, that like enhances the experience. Um, that like you can't really call the screenplay the only thing that matters because the screenplay is often enhanced by like the visual language of a film, like, and
Right.
some of the ways that things are communicated by that visual language. I mean, that's the whole point of subtext. um
Yes.
like,
And I think that's actually
and obviously
there's actually a
subtext can
good
also exist with dialogue, like a lot of like
oh yeah.
great like scripts do that, but like the point I'm making is that the visuals do also matter. I'm not saying you can't have a great written story without visuals, because obviously great books exist and there
Yeah.
are great like stories that have like subpar animation or subpar visuals.
Oh yeah, like
Like,
I think
I'm not going to say Invincible has subpar animation. I don't
mhm,
think it has amazing animation. It could use a
right.
lot of work, but the story
I
is
think
pretty fantastic. But
yeah,
even then,
it's
there's
a
still a lot of visual stuff that like complements the story and like enhances it. So
it's
it's
more
like,
very
yeah,
it, it's more varied than a lot of people give credit for. Like for example, I think like for here's a good example, right? So the Disney movie Raya and the Last Dragon. That film's been one of the like the big like Disney animated movies to get criticized a lot when it came out. Not so much as Wish. Wish I think was like the first big one for Walt Disney. That and Ralph Breaks the Internet. So it's not on that level, I don't think, but Raya definitely got a lot of criticism and having seen it at least twice, I can safely say it's a movie that frustrates me because the animation of the film is phenomenal. Like from a technical level, there's nothing wrong with it. It looks incredible. The characters are like the side characters are great. The acting is very well done. The music is good. The color grading, the shot composition, it looks very nice and incredible for the most part. But what holds me back from thinking it's a good movie is the character writing for the main characters and the way the story executes its like theme of trust and does it in a way that I think could send a bad message if taken poorly with the way it handles it, especially in the third act. So again, I'm not saying writing has no bearing on the plot, but notice when I was talking about Raya's issues there, I didn't just say the character writing, I also said the execution of the theme was a problem too. And you can make an argument of whether that theme was based on the writing being bad or not, but the theme is not the writing. They can work together, but they're still separate things. So for me at least, to hear like I'm not gonna say that none of the good stuff in Raya matters because the writing is bad. I honestly think it's a movie I want to recommend more to people because I'm like give it a watch because some people love it, some people don't. It's a very mixed bag of opinions there. And I think it's a point is, yeah, with this kind of stuff, even when I can see where people are coming from on these perspectives, I feel like it gets very narrowing. There's a good quote from a YouTuber that, to be clear, I have no beef with. Last I checked, we are cool with each other. We haven't interacted in a while, but we're chill. And Noah, you know this YouTuber, Madvocate. There's a quote
oh yeah, I
from
kind of do.
yeah, there's a quote from Madvocate, one of his videos talking about WandaVision, where and to be fair, for a while I understood the point of this statement. He said nothing abstract stands when everything concrete is rubble, and I think that's a perfectly fine like perspective to have on. That's a fine stance to take. Counter stance. Rubble can be beautiful too and have a point. And on top of this, maybe I'm not wording this the best and I'm going to get mocked for it, but counterpoint is that okay, but just because the concrete is rubble doesn't mean the abstract has nothing of value or that it still can't add to the scenery. I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, but like it's I understand the 100% where the desire for more internal consistency comes from. I get it. But sometimes it gets to a point where it's like, this isn't the only perspective you have to consider to find value in a piece of media, right? Like you can look at shit from other avenues and angles. And I think especially now with people like Critical Drinker who talk so much shit for years about how Hollywood is the end of the world, Republican people like Daily Wire do it better, that when he finally makes his movie Rebel Ridge, or sorry, Proof of Concept, or no, not Rebel Ridge. Whoa, wait, that's something completely different. Fuck. What was his fucking
Rogue Elements.
Sorry, I got Rogue Element. Okay, I got that completely confused with apparently a really good action movie on Netflix. But right, so Rogue Element, he goes and makes that, and surprise, surprise, people don't like it. And
Yeah.
look, I'm gonna be blunt. I'm not one of those cyberbullying. I don't endorse cyberbullying. But that said, Critical Drinker. I almost said Crinker. Critical Critical Drinker. I think deserves all the shit he is getting for that film because he spent years talking shit, yapping his ear off about how the studios are killing your favorite characters. They're character assassinating everybody. They're demasculating men and making women hollow feminism icons. And all of this is about this and that and girl power. And the woke left is ruining cinema. He bitched and moaned and all of this other stuff for years, probably almost 10 years of his life, about how Hollywood is killing everything and being critical toward the work of teams of hundreds of people that put in genuine passion and effort and talent into this shit, even if it didn't end up good. So I say, I don't care if you put effort into this or if you're lower budget. If you talk shit and make a bad product, take the hit. Prove you actually believe in listening to critical feedback and suck it up if you're going to be this much of a goddamn dick to people in the industry that, regardless of how corrupt or flawed it is, want to tell good stories and want to make fun things that people enjoy. Point is, all of this is me basically saying, I'm kind of thankful that Rogue Element exists because it not only shows more people that Critical Drinker is not all the hot shit he builds himself up to be with a lot of this stuff, but it also showcases that just because you know how to criticize something doesn't mean you know how to make the thing you're criticizing or do it better. And that's actually one of the reasons I like that FNAF video I mentioned, because in that video, Cheesine says he says something along the lines of, now look, I totally understand how this can be seen as callous or snobbish. I am one person looking at the work of an entire team of people and acting like I could do it better. I totally understand it, but let this be known, this does not come from a place of hate. I genuinely like this game, but it does not scare me, and I want to talk about why I think it doesn't. He worded it differently, but that's basically what he got across, and I'm glad that more perspectives like that are starting to pop up, and I'm finding more people where even if they're critical of something, they're more open to different perspectives, and they're acknowledging, like, at the end of the day, like, I can't always make something like this. It's not to say they're lazy or can't make something like this at the end of the day. It's just to say, look, I don't know what it was like working on this. I'm not trying to say I'm better at these people's jobs. I'm just voicing my thoughts on this. It's one of the reasons I love Nando V Movies, because he voices that with his rewrites, or at used to with his rewrites and his ideas, that he doesn't think he's better than anybody working on the films and has no hatred toward anyone. And it's one of the reasons as well that Like, for example, like if I say I can't make a movie like Ultraman Rising at this point in my life, it's not because I think I could never do that or I could never do anything good, which, mind you, I think Ultraman Rising is one of the best animated films of the 2020s. Please go watch it, even if you've never seen Ultraman. It's so fucking peak. But me saying I could never make a movie like that right now is not me saying I never could at all. It's just saying, oh, I lack the experience, teamwork, and well, the vision for what became that film to make it myself. And even if I were to make it, it'd probably be different because I'm not bringing my perspective to it. So, point is, like, with a lot of these critics, I think some of the ones, especially that are still fucking dickheads and don't change, assuming they're not just the complete sexist ones and the racist dickheads who still grift people for money, but the real people who actually like want to go into this stuff, make their own stories, deconstruct stories so they know how to make their own. I think it is important to have that perspective of, okay, I am not the people who made the thing I dislike. So even if I were to try and do something quote unquote better, that doesn't mean I'm automatically going to, or I know what these people went through in full. I think it all just comes down to have a little bit of, just have a little more self awareness and like basic respect for people. And believe me, sometimes there are some people that don't deserve to be respected in the industry 100%, but that's not the majority. It's individualistic. It depends. So, yeah, not to derail from any point you were trying to make, but I think that's a big part of it with a lot
I
of this
do
stuff
have
is
one problem with what you just said, and that is you stated that the critical drinker is good at criticism. I think that's being a
oh
bit
shit,
too
did I?
charitable. I think he's good at
Oh, I
lying. That's
oh
more
yeah,
like what I would say.
I should have I if I said that I should have specified. Either I was trying to say like he built himself up like he was hot shit, or
Yeah, no, I
I
get
think
what
when I
you were
said
saying. I was trying to do a bit there. I was trying to be funny.
yeah, I kind of screwed up my way of delivering it. I was trying to say I hope these people that think they're better than the filmmakers they criticize at what they do learn some fucking humility. That was kind of the main point, but I might have said it wrong and
Right,
made it sound
right.
like,
That's
oh,
a big thing. And like some of the people who make these like claims about like Marvel movies being slop, like I'm they haven't made anything. Like and not to be super annoying about this because I'm not saying you have to make something to criticize something else. I'm just saying
right.
like these are just like Twitter accounts that like farm engagement and like other like prominent people on social media who just like are constantly negative about things. And I'm sitting here like okay, like it's fine to criticize these things. It's fine to think this way about them, but you have to at least acknowledge that this was like work that people did. And like no, I'm not saying that you have to like something or think it's good because people put effort into it. Of course you
Yeah.
don't. But you can't act like it has no artistic value, that it's completely devoid of meaning. Like I saw at one point someone put like a bunch of movies into like a category on Letterbox as one example, and the category was just called like evil movies that are like movies devoid of humanity, and such movies include like I don't know, I think Love and Thunder, and then like The Rise of Skywalker. Free Guy was another example.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
What else was
Uh,
on that list? Probably a couple other MCU movies, maybe one or two other Star Wars movies. I forget
you
exactly, but
see,
the point is, no, I don't care. There's no exceptions to this. Any movie that was made by human hands has some level of artistic value. If we
yeah.
get to a point where we start making AI generated movies, then I will, then that's different. But like movies that were made through like a human production process at some point necessarily have a human touch, which is worth acknowledging. Even if the movies are
Yeah.
bad, even if they are screwed over by corporate shit, even if they have like annoying bullshit in them and whatnot, like these are still products of labor with some level of value. Like it's not all like worthless slop. And there's two attitudes I've seen regarding this whole thing on social media. Um and I don't like either of them. There's the more transparently like asshole like kind of logic of like well, I've deemed these movies slop and worthless, so if you like them and watch them, you're actually contributing to problems in Hollywood, because you're rewarding bad behavior, and you should only be watching movies that I personally think are good, because that will make the industry better. And that's obviously like a pompous, really arrogant way of looking at the world and like looking at movies. But
Right.
there's also another one that's not quite as bad, but it still really pisses me off. And it's this whole mindset of like, it's okay to like slop. It's okay to just have bad taste and like things that are objectively not very good. And like, I'm just
Right.
sitting here like, okay, but you're still presupposing that because you think this thing about a movie, that objectively determines its quality. And like people
Oh,
aren't allowed to
exactly.
dispute that. Like it's like saying,
Yeah.
yeah, you're allowed to like this movie, but it's still objectively terrible, and it's still like a bad thing for Hollywood. It's just okay if you personally like it. It's okay to have bad taste. It's like, what if, and here's a shocker, what if I actually just think the movie is good?
Yeah. Like, gosh,
Like, I don't,
that's a
like, I don't have to be like, oh yeah, I like this movie, but yeah, it is kind of fucking garbage, exactly like you said. I just like it anyway. No, sometimes I just actually think it's a good movie. Like, there's
I
definitely movies where I like them, but I also think they're bad. Like, a Minecraft movie is a great example of that. But then there's other movies where people will call them like corporate slop, and I'm like, I don't know. I thought that was good. I liked
yeah.
Free Guy. Like, I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah.
I
I'll
don't
be blunt. Yeah, like
like.
Free Guy's one of those movies I
And
think
I'm
it's
sorry if
very
you're gonna
over.
tell me. I think if you're gonna tell me, yeah, it's okay to like that, but it's total like worthless slop. I'm like, no, I disagree with you. I just disagree with you. You can think that, but don't enforce that opinion on me. Like, don't act like I'm
Right.
supposed to agree because you, the arbiter of media, have decided that this is objectively bad or weak or slop. Like,
Yeah, and I'm actually really glad you brought that up because that's a feeling I had when I was kind of in a lot of those like objective media criticism type circles. That kind of backhanded feeling of like, okay, I'm sure you didn't mean to insult me when you say that, but you still called what I like shit. So it's like what it's like that thing I was talking to you about.
and I'll be clear
The
about
one
this, if I may. It's
yeah,
fine to call something I like shit. What's not
right.
fine is acting like I should be expected to agree with you that it's shit just because you've come in and you've made an observation you think is objectively correct about it. Like,
Yeah.
you can you can absolutely call things I like shit. I'm friends with a guy who thinks the Sonic movie 2 is terrible, even though I really like that movie. But that guy has never gone to me being like, well, but that guy has never acted like I should believe that just because he does. Like,
Yeah.
he's never
I'm
been,
kind of
yeah, it's okay to like this movie, but you have to admit it's kind of bad, right? No, he never said that. He just said that he thinks it's bad. So that's the difference. Like, it's simply a matter of like, don't tread on like my opinions and I won't tread on yours. You're allowed to convince me of something. That's perfectly fine, but don't act like I'm expected to agree with you because you made the genius observation, you know?
Exactly. I got that backhanded feeling all the time, I think, in insight with a lot of that kind of stuff. Because I remember I was telling you about, I already told you about this, but like, I kind of want to mention this. Yeah, since we're talking about this in a podcast type setting. So there was a reviewer I used to watch, and I'm still subbed to the guy. I just don't
I
watch
think
his
it's best
videos.
we don't name names here, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I won't name names. I won't start any drama. But there was basically a reviewer who made a long review criticizing a season of Power Rangers that I really liked. And throughout that video, they basically like said they were clearly making it clear. They were God, that was redundant. They were making it
That's
very
okay.
clear they hated the show. They did not like it. They thought it was bad. They ended their review by giving it a 2 out of 10. They said they thought it sucked. And it was already a little and it was a little weird. I felt like so and by the end of that I was like, okay, he's like, sorry people who like it, but I just can't personally rate it any higher. I give it a 2 out of 10. That's all right, fine, whatever. That's a fine take to have. But then at the end of the review series, he had this bit where he considered doing a Rage Against the Machine destroy the DVD copy he has of the show like skit. It's something a lot of reviewers used to do with skits where they'd like destroy the video game disc of the media they hate. Um, and he was like, I was gonna do that joke, but honestly, I feel like it'd be wasted on something I personally just dislike. I'm gonna save it for something that truly deserves my hatred. And I was like, wait a fucking minute. So you spent this 8-part multi-hour series convincing me that this show that everybody considers the best of this era is a 2 out of 10 with what you consider objective reasoning, but it's just something you personally dislike? Like, what? I don't. That's what?
That's the thing about some people like this. And not to say anything specifically about this guy, but it is a common vibe I feel in like sort of this space where it's like they'll like kind of intrude on other people's opinions and expect you to just acknowledge that they're right. And then when you call them out for that behavior, they then act like their personal opinion is being attacked, even though that's not really what's going on. I've noticed it a couple
Yeah,
times with like reviewers of this ilk, and again, I'm not going to name any names, but like, and also just like Twitter users who talk about like media and CBMs and stuff like that. It's like this whole
right.
thing of like, here's my opinion, let me just enforce it on everyone. And then when you tell me that you don't want to just accept that I'm right offhand, even though I obviously am, then you're actually disrespecting my opinion, which makes you a hypocrite. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Like, it's such a bizarre thing. And I guess not to belabor this point too much, I'm just, I'm just really tired of this whole thing where like people act like they can just decide what is cinema, what has value. Like, I mean, look, I'm not here to like sing the praises of every Marvel movie and act like it's peak cinema. I don't think I stand by this. I don't think that the MCU has a single movie I would consider a masterpiece. So I'm not saying that like MCU movies are peak fiction or anything. I'm just saying it's fucking annoying. Like a masterpiece to me is something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which still remains my favorite movie to this day, where it's just like
Mhm.
everything comes together in such a perfect manner that it's almost like explosive and transcendental. I don't think any Marvel movie is like that so far. But all I'm saying is to act like these movies are just some fundamentally anti-art product with no value, with no creative input, even though tons of people who are passionate work on these things, especially with stuff like Thunderbolts, where you can kind of tell the passion is there, and like the crew is very like open about how passionate they are. That's a thing in all the movies. I hate to break it to you, even the ones that you hate, like they all have that kind of aspect of like people enjoying working on them. Yeah, like certainly there's some elements where it's like, people are like required by their job to do things they don't like, but like generally speaking, in Hollywood, it really comes down to like a case by case basis where like some people like there's always going to be people on a team who like enjoy the work they're doing. And it just seems unfair to me that like we have this whole categorization where we can just decide none of that matters because we've categorized these movies as slop, as not being truly meaningful. And
Right.
I'm sorry, but we just can't treat art like that. We can't just decide entire categories of things don't matter because of some criteria I came up with. Because whenever we start doing that with art, it just becomes like it just gets to the point of like I don't know, like I don't want to be hyperbolic and alarmist about this stuff, but like in fascist regimes, like there's this whole thing about how like art is considered some high elevated thing, and anything that like doesn't meet its moral standards or quality standards is then cast out as not being real art. And I'm not saying this is the same thing. I'm not saying that what I'm talking about is anywhere near as extreme as that. I'm just saying I don't like the mindset and the precedent of just, oh, let's decide things that we don't like and things
It
that like have corporate meddling in them are just not art. And here's
it
another
actually
thing that,
reminds
sorry,
it
yeah, no,
it
go
actually
ahead.
I was just gonna say it actually reminds me of something related actually to just art history. You know about like the whole thing of how there was a period where like some art was in like the early 20th century, how some art was like considered kitsch, like that kind of labeling distinction for stuff.
I don't really know what that word specifically means. Do you mean like lowbrow,
Okay,
highbrow?
it's basically it. I'm trying to remember all. I don't have my school notes on me immediately, so I apologize for using Wikipedia. But yeah, kitsch is a term applied to art, and I'm just quoting here. I'm not plagiarizing. Kitsch
Yeah,
is a
don't let
term
that H
applied.
bomber guy know. Yeah.
Yeah, kitsch is a term applied to art and design that is perceived as naive imitation, overly eccentric, gratuitous, or banal, or a banal taste. Basically, it was this thing where art that was seen as realistic and lifelike at the time was seen as, you know, high art or real art, whereas more expressive, like shall we say postmodern, I guess, or like wild, unrealistic, exaggerated artwork, I guess cartoons would fall into that, was seen as kitsch, where it's like just a pale imitation of life. It's not fine art in a sense. And maybe I'm, yeah, it's to brand visual. It says here to brand visual art as kitsch is often still pejorative, though not exclusively. Art deemed kitsch may be enjoyed in an entirely positive and sincere manner. So it's obviously
They had a
evolved
word for
over the
slop
years.
back then. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Like this
kinda,
genuinely
in
it
a way.
genuinely feels like the same word. It's just, history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes.
I think I cracked the fucking code. This is kind of a side thing. I think I finally got it. That's the problem with the fucking Disney remakes going for lifelike stuff over animation. They're trying to be fucking kitsch. No, they're seeing cartoons as kitsch, and they're
Oh
trying to
my
make the
god, right.
the we
That's
just
actually a
I
great point to bring up because like I truly I will go as far as I have to with this whole like everything has artistic value, even the smallest things, even the most quote unquote corporate things have some level of artistic value that has to be acknowledged. Like, and yes, I do think that includes the Disney live action remakes. Now, I
I
don't
think so
like
too
those
to a degree.
conceptually. I don't like them
Right.
conceptually. I don't think they should exist. Or at least I don't think they should be made in like, and like make like $1 billion or whatever. I don't
Right.
like that they like kind of supplant the originals. I don't like any of that stuff. I think a lot of them are in concept lazy. Obviously, again, like some film crews have fun making them. But like conceptually, they're pretty lazy, is what I'm saying. But they still have some artistic value, and I stand by that. Yes, even for the Disney live action remakes, because this principle kind of has to be universal. As long as there's a human touch somewhere, like it has to apply, you know? Um, and I guess this would be a good time to bring up. I know you talked to me once about Mufasa because I haven't seen that. I haven't
Yeah.
seen any of the live action Disney remakes since like I don't know Pete's Dragon, which I
Hmm.
actually kind of liked. But you know what
Yeah.
I'm you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, with
Like
with fucking with Mufasa, for example, like that was a movie where when it was announced, even as a diehard Lion King stan, basically, I was like, even when that film was announced, I was like, okay, this is bottom of the barrel dumb creativity. We're not even trying with this. Why is this even being made? And now that we have the final version of the movie, I'm not gonna act like it's high art. I still think it's honestly, if we ignore the remake, it's the weakest Lion King movie to me. It's still got a lot of problems. There are issues with it. It did not need to exist. If just saying the term a Mufasa prequel still sounds weird cuz to me at least Mufasa, like the one in the animated movie, doesn't give it's kind of the same thing as like Madam Web, where I'm like, this character doesn't give me main character energy. I like them, but really? We have a like what story is there to tell here? But having seen the final movie and seeing what Barry Jenkins and the crew were going for, I have to say now, I actually do like the movie. I enjoy it. I don't again, it's not to say it's perfect, but god damn it, it tried harder, I think, than the Lion King remake, and I think a lot of why it does in some areas work is better than it is because it knows where the remake fumbled. So it does make genuine efforts to improve the facial animations and the storytelling and the execution of lighting and coloring in some environments. Again, there are issues with it from an animation and writing standpoint. Some characters are better than others. Some songs are better than others, even though most of them have grown on me. The directing is very weird. Sometimes it's good, other times it's very odd. There's a lot of instances where the camera feels like it's moving around a lot and it doesn't work. But For what I was expecting going in, like an okay, like just a mediocre, yeah, whatever, you kind of tried, but it wasn't enough type movie. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would, and have a soft spot for it now. So
And I
yeah,
noticed that
even a
even
film,
with, sorry, go
yeah,
on, go on. Finish your
but
thought.
yeah, I was just ending on the point of like even a film that I thought was going to be worthless has given me a lot of like things I enjoy recently or fun. Like I bumped to the fucking Mufasa soundtrack currently. Like there's a lot of songs from that movie in my music rotation. I say like I'm on Spotify, even though I'm really not. But yeah, even a film I thought was going to be like bottom of the bin creativity, completely worthless, gave me something as a Lion King fan that I was like, oh, I actually quite liked what they went with here. So yeah, I think it helps cement your point about how even shit like this can be beneficial and helpful, or like, or rather
It's at
inspire
least
you or enter.
interesting. Like it's
Yeah,
like even
and I'll
with the
also
stuff you said that was bad about it, like the directing, it's like that's kind of an interesting thing. Like why is it like that? And like we should think
yeah.
about why it's like that instead of just like dismissing it wholesale. That's the part that I think pisses me off the most. It's just the dismissal, right? Because like if we don't learn from missteps in art, because like as I said, I'm not I'm not here to defend the MCU's honor at every turn. I am here
Yeah,
criticizing most of it. We spent like the whole I think almost first hour of this talking about why we think people don't
yeah.
like it and the problems with how it's set up right now. Um
I love the
so
MCU. I'll
of
take pot
fucking
shots at it.
course. So of fucking course we're critical of it. It's just we don't want the whole thing dismissed because there are problems with it and there is like lazy corporate shit going on. It's just it's still fundamentally an artistic venture at its core, even if it's so muddied. Like I mean,
For
maybe
sure.
not at its core. It's just along the process there is artistic input and there's stuff to be gained from it and there's stuff to be learned from it. And
Yeah,
now,
and
I'm
this
gonna.
kind of
Sorry, no, go.
sorry.
You go. You go.
Yeah, and that was actually, I will say, I don't know how long we were planning on continuing this, but I think this actually I would actually like to kind of, if I could, like go into like the final main thing I wanted to discuss. This doesn't have to be the end of the talking. This is the
Go
last big
ahead.
thing
Yeah.
where I'm like,
No.
oh, this is the other thing I hate, kind of going back to sort of like the whole putting James Gunn on a pedestal thing. Listen, I say this as someone who loves James Gunn. He has his superhero work has literally defined like who I want to be as a person. I love his stories. The Guardians of the Galaxy got me into the MCU. That trilogy is my favorite superhero trilogy, right next to, I mean, Spider-Verse is probably going to come out and blow my mind with the third one, but like the Guardians is up there, at least. Like that's my favorite live action superhero trilogy. Volume 2 is one of my favorite MCU films. Volume 3 is my favorite MCU film. I love his work on the Suicide Squad. I adore Peacemaker. I'm so fucking excited for Superman. I really liked Creature Commandos, and I'm so happy he's in charge of the DC like franchises. That's a property that meant more to my life before Marvel did. I was a DC kid really before I was a Marvel kid. So I want to make it clear, as much as I love James Gunn, though, not only is the man not perfect, he's still screwed up at times, as good as he does things, and as flawed as the attempt to cancel him was or whatever. But which even then, even just saying canceled, some people probably cringed at that. But even as much as I love James Gunn and think his work has genuinely changed my life for the better and made me like have impacted the kind of stories I want to tell as an artist, I will say, I really fucking hate when people act like he's the only filmmaker that has ever done anything good in the MCU post Endgame. Like, it really grinds my fucking gears when people dismiss the good work of the creatives and the directors just because they didn't like the final product. It's
Let
like,
me
oh,
let me list a
it's not,
few examples. Ryan
yeah,
Coogler did a fantastic job. He's a fantastic
yeah,
director. He just came out with a banger original movie, Sinners, which people are
yes,
gushing grannies about. Um,
mm-hmm,
but you have to acknowledge that he paved the way for that with his Marvel input, with stuff
yes,
like Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which I think are
yeah,
two movies that have a lot of artistic merit and have a lot of interesting things
absolutely,
to say. And I do really like those movies. That's one
yeah,
example. I think Chloe Zhao is another great example of a talented filmmaker who's worked in Marvel.
Right.
Her movie before, Nomadland, was very much a critically acclaimed movie. It was, high art, as some would say. It was Nomadland. I might have said it already, but
Hmm.
it won an Oscar, I think, or it was nominated. I don't really remember because I don't really watch the Oscars. The point is, critically acclaimed movie. And no matter what you say about the story of Eternals, because as much as I like that movie, weirdly, I do have a lot of criticisms of the story. No matter what you say about the story or the script or anything like that, the cinematography in Eternals and the directing, I think, is honestly really great. And like it
Yeah.
speaks to her talent, both outside and inside the MCU. And that's just one example. Um,
Right.
I didn't really love Sean Levy's direction in Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought that like the loss of David Leitch was pretty felt in that movie.
Mm.
But like that being said, even he still had some like really creative like sequences,
Oh
like the
yeah.
whole, bye bye
I
bye
love.
fight.
Yeah,
That was
that fight was
awesome.
also. That's another
Like
good
some of the other
example. That
ones were a
fight.
lot more stilted to me than the ones from the first two. I really like that movie, but the directing is definitely a step down. But even then,
Yeah.
like he still has like some value. And like he also directs I think he also directs like Stranger Things, which I would say is a pretty well directed show. So even then he's still pretty talented in some areas.
Yeah, and
Um
also to say
then there's
that
also
Deadpool.
there's more examples than just those
I
people.
actually
Like I could go on.
I actually do have some examples. First of all, Matt Shackman, the director of all 9 episodes of WandaVision. Like, don't get me wrong, WandaVision has problems. I think it does not stick the ending as well as it could have or should have. But that show, most people agreed, like looking back, like it had a lot of great visual flair and did things that felt distinct and fun. And even when it went back to the typical MCU style of presenting things, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't as entertaining to a lot of people as the sitcom worlds that messed around with different aspect ratios and colors and sets and ways of directing scenes.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I liked the outside typical MCU stuff. But I definitely liked like the inside like sitcom aspect of it more. And I thought like, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
once it kind of wrapped back around to being like a sort of a typical MCU thing, I was like, that's when like the show got a little bit like, I don't know, worse to me. I guess weaker is a better way of putting it. It was still a
Yeah.
fun watch the whole way through. And I mean, I know I mentioned earlier that I didn't really love the first season of Loki, but even that had a lot of like interesting directorial things
Yeah.
going on. And like there was a lot of creative shit even in that first season. I'm sure it's even greater in the second season, but that's like
Yeah, the
another
second season
example of like
the
a lot of like effort was put into some areas of the production and like a lot of like creative input. Even just if
yeah,
you take
and
the composer, Natalie Holt did a fantastic job with the Loki soundtrack. Um
the composers of the MCU are so fucking underrated. Like Ludwig Göransson. Holy fucking shit. Hot take. I don't know how much of a hot take this is. I maybe it's not. I don't know. The Black Panther soundtracks are the best soundtracks in the MCU.
Not to
Ludwig
mention
fucking burned the
Thunderbolts
house down
has
with those.
Son Lux, which I mentioned
Yeah.
how Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite movie. Same
Yeah.
composers.
For sure. And they
Yeah, but
did
the
a
movie has
great
no
job.
artistic value, guys, because it's MCU slop. Ignore the
Right,
fact
like
that like these extremely talented people are working on it and like clearly putting a lot of effort into the music. Yeah, guys, but it's slop though. Just trust me.
how good, like the stuff is with like the music, especially to just like to give it for example a hint of like or a bit of praise for Sun Lux. As I was actually like setting up to like as in like the time waiting for me to like start this with you, I was actually like listen like thinking back to the Thunderbolts like the what's the word for it? I was thinking back to the trap fight scene where everybody is in the Mexico facility and battling each other, and I was thinking of the specific beats and moments from the soundtrack. I wasn't even listening to the song. I was just thinking to that unique vibe with the strings and the instrumentation and just like kind of mimicking it with my mouth. Like they made some great tracks in that film that weren't just leitmotifs. They were pieces that's and I think a lot of the MCU stuff recently has done a good job of that. Oh my god, the Moon Knight composers, like those fuckers cooked. They did a great job with both the theme for that character and the backgrounds. That's another good example, actually.
And yeah,
That I
Ludwig
also
Göransson. I cut you off about Ludwig Göransson, but he was. Did he not also compose for Sinners, by the way? I think he
might
did.
have. Ludwig gets around. He does some big stuff. I think he. Let me actually check. Ludwig Göransson movies. Yes, he
Correct
did
me if I'm
compose for
wrong.
Sinners.
Michael Giacchino has composed for at least one MCU movie, right?
Oh, he's composed like most of them. He did the theme for the MCU, like the Marvel fanfare when the logo comes in. He also
That
did
was him?
yeah. Yeah, he also did Doctor Strange, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and he not only made the music for it, he directed Werewolf by Night. He made the music for and directed that special, and it was fucking fantastic. So like they really know their shit when it comes to like the composers of this stuff. Giacchino especially, given how
Yeah, I
connected to
mean,
Marvel. He's
this is the big thing for me. Like, they get so many talented people for these movies. Even if there is executive meddling, these aren't all like mindless corporate drones who just want a paycheck. Like, these are guys who really fucking care and like put
yeah.
their all into this. And again, I will state this point. I'm not saying you have to like it or think it's good because people put effort into it. I'm saying that you should just not dismiss it as like worthless slop, because it's
Yeah.
not.
And it's especially, I think as well, there's also kind of this sense of, yeah, with a lot of these other MCU creators, it especially frustrates me when Gunn specifically is put on a pedestal. Because, like I said, the the whole thing it feels like is that even if people put good work into this shit, if the movie is divisive or not well loved or it stick the landing with everyone, people aren't going to care as much about the effort because the whole picture wasn't perfect. Like, for example, like, let's remind ourselves, Multiverse of Madness was directed by Sam Raimi. You know, the goat that everybody loves, the creator of the Spider-Man that everybody that every high top film subscriber enjoys. Like, that's their goat. That's the guy. And I say this with no disrespect to high top films. I love Alex. But yeah, with Sam Raimi, he did Multiverse of Madness and brought, I will say, a lot of sauce to that movie. I think the first Doctor Strange is better in every way except the directing. As much as I love Scott Derrickson's directing in the film, I think the color and sauce of Multiverse of Madness puts it slightly above it. If it had the
Yeah,
same good effect.
the color grading in Multiverse of Madness is honestly really good. Like,
Right. And to be fair, like the first Doctor Strange was going for a more somber tone with rainy days and cloudy scenes and like misty Tibetan sunrises. They shot in London and London is
but do you
gray.
see how
So,
we're talking about like artistic choices that have relevance
yes,
and aren't just like
exactly.
corporate slop? Like, this is my whole point. Like, most of the movies are like this. You can find things, in fact, all of them are to some extent. You can find things that are interesting about them. Like, and even if you counter that by saying like, oh, the Russo brothers have a very flat way of directing, sure, I kind of agree with that. But even then, like, you have other stuff in those movies, like, you know, Alan Silvestri's like score is like really good. And like,
Uh,
you know, there's like some interesting things being done with the writing, and not all of it lands. I have a lot of criticisms of Endgame, but you know, like,
mhm. Yeah.
there's still a lot of artistic value in that whole project, and I mean,
Even and even then, like people will have different ways as well. Sometimes bad directing to one person could be seen as a good choice to another person. Like for example, I personally like I really don't care that much about the airport fight in Civil War having the flat directing and lighting that it does. I notice it more now, yes, and I have to be reminded of it because people keep criticizing the movie for it a lot. But I frankly don't care much about it because in my head I'm like, well, all right, but the
but
stuff going on here is
you can
so
also
well done.
yeah, you can also simultaneously praise stuff like the character work and the set design and all that. I
Yeah,
think the Civil War fight is really great because it makes use of the set design. It's something really great that like all the best like action set pieces in Mission Impossible do, which, you know, I'm a D1 Mission Impossible glazer. I love almost all
right.
those movies. Um, and I think like some of them are like borderline incredible. Like Rogue Nation and Fallout probably being my two favorites. Ghost Protocol's also probably up there. But the point I'm making is these movies make such good use of their set pieces and do so many creative things with their fights. I'm not saying that Civil War is like quite on that level, but they do make use of the environment in the airport. And
Yeah.
even if you can like knock like the lighting and like the color grading and like the directing itself for being a bit flat, there is still at least one element you can find where it's like, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of like someone put effort into this and like someone like really like tried to make this stand out. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I think even when you have something that has like lackluster elements, you're always going to find at least one element that's interesting and artistic and valuable. Even in movies
Something
that like won't have most of that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and something that also just crossed my mind now that I think about it is, let's think about Captain America: Civil War for a sec. That film was the Russo brothers' vision. That was basically I know Civil War had some behind the scenes troubles. There was a lot of stuff like the original inception of the movie. It wasn't even going to be Civil War initially. The original plan was like a more straightforward Winter Soldier type film that would have focused on I think Zemo would have still been the main villain, or Arnim Zola, but it would have focused on a completely different plot based on something from the comics called the Mad Bomb, which is a whole can of worms. But so it didn't become Civil War until they got Downey on to do it. Or maybe Spider-Man, I don't know for sure, but definitely Downey had a big part in it. So the movie definitely underwent like studio issues. And I don't know all the details, but I know it was a shit show. Is definitely going to talk about Civil War at some point in the future, because they mentioned in their Age of Ultron video that there was basically like a lot of conflict that got settled during the production of that movie. But with Civil War, despite all the corporate meddling, a lot of that was still the Russo brothers' same approach to making what they did with Winter Soldier. So for a lot of this stuff in my head, I'm like, okay, guys, some of this stuff is not just corporate. You just don't like the vision. You just don't like the execution of this person's perspective. It's not always just, oh, the studio corporatized it, that's why it's this and that. Sometimes it is just, maybe you just don't like this person's directing. Like, be more honest about that, I think.
yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it too. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes people just make mistakes, or even not mistakes. Sometimes you just don't like the decisions that films make. And it's not like
Mhm.
because they're soulless or slop. It's just because you don't like what they did. I don't know. Like,
Yeah. And to kind
um,
of go back to my point about
yeah.
like the Civil War airport fight, for me at least, when I saw Civil War as a kid, I saw kind of some of that gray lighting and the vibe it was going for, not as like, oh, this is super flat, uninteresting directing. I saw it as like, oh, this reminds me of like a cloudy day in spring where sun breaks through and it's like patches of daytime before going back to being cloudy. And I grew up in a suburb where that was like my favorite time of year. It still is my favorite time of year when it's spring and things are nice and kind of balanced out. And when you live in a suburb, things can be a bit more, they're not obviously like rural farms or anything, but they're a bit more spaced out. So the airport fight in a weird way, it reminded me of like, oh, the fields I like to practice stuff with my friends on as I was a kid. Or wow, that was barely English, but like, you get the point. My perspective of the Civil War airport fight and its choice of lighting in its daytime setting, I took it through like oh, I like cloudy days, and this film kind of gives me that vibe when I watch this scene. That's not to say I think the directing is free of criticism. It's just me saying, here's why I liked it. Here's why I vibed with it. And it's and frankly, there's just times where as well, people will literally do like every form of directing right, and it still won't satisfy some people. Like I watched Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's a step down from the previous Aquaman, even if I think the main like focal point of it is sound conceptually. But one thing I will say, even if the film is not as good as the first Aquaman, it still has a lot of James Wan directing sauce that the first one did. And it pissed me off when I rewatched the climax of the movie. There's a great there's a fantastic hand-to-hand battle. Well, not hand-to-hand, but like very like up close trident battle between Aquaman and Black Manta. It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. It's genuinely really fucking cool. Great balance of CGI and practical effects. And I saw someone in the YouTube comments being like, bad directing or like bad cinematography. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is Heat. But like, that's that person's perspective. So it's like, okay, fine, I guess, whatever. I don't get it, but that just shows the variety of opinions. Like, even some good directing to some people is bad, and some bad directing to some people is good. Like, it's not all one thing. Like, let's just remember that for 5 seconds sometimes.
And I mean, I guess one final thing I want to get to. This is kind of approaching the thesis statement. Here's the secret villain of the week. The villain of the week of every podcast discussion, of every video essay: capitalism. Dun, dun, dun. So, what does capitalism have to do with this? Well, the executive meddling and the corporate parts of, like, the art production pipeline have to do with capitalism, where these movies are not made necessarily to make money. They're greenlit to make money. There's a crucial distinction there. A lot of the people working on these movies actually do have a story they want to tell. It's just incidentally, they have to get it through this. They have to achieve that through this means of, like, getting greenlit by a studio, getting funded, and getting released kind of under the studio's watch. Unless they're able to fund an independent project, which I want more of, to be clear. But, like, you get what I'm saying. Like, that's the role capitalism plays in this. Now, this is obvious, like, first, obvious, level analysis. So, I'm not going to harp on this point too much. The point I want to make, I guess, is when people kind of have this mindset of, like, supporting these designated slop movies or bad movies is inherently going to make Hollywood worse because it rewards bad behavior from studios, or whatever someone wants to call it. Like, it makes the studios want to produce more slop because the slop is proven to work and it gets the money. So it leaves studios less willing to take risks, or less willing to bank on, like, actual good movies, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? Like, whole rewarding bad behavior is supposed to produce bad results. I disagree with this for a couple of reasons. I disagree with this primarily because obviously people can't just decide based on their personal criteria what movies are bad and what movies are good. Yeah, you can, to an extent, understand what movies have more corporate meddling and what movies have more corporate influence. That, I guess, you can know. And, like, maybe you want, like, movies that are more complete visions to succeed, which is fine, I guess. It's just, that brings us on to my second problem, and that is, you're trying to rely on the free market to just work, to reward the right movies so that studios will not make any missteps and always do the right thing. And you're trying to just badger people into making the free market work, which isn't how that, not to repeat the same words so many times, but that's not how that works. That's not how capitalism works. That's not how the quote-unquote free market works. Because at the end of the day, the primary motive of companies is to make a profit. Like, no matter what you reward at the end of the day, no matter what you reward in terms of money, studios are fundamentally going to want to cut corners during the production because it will expend less money, even though they do inflate the budgets for some reason. I don't really know why, but the point is, like, they want to make money. They will cut corners. They will make products that are mostly just satisfactory, to their standards anyway, and they'll just send them into the world. And in my opinion, people just relying on, like, only ever going to see the, high artistic value movies or whatever isn't really going to change that, because I hate to break it to you guys, as I've said way earlier in this podcast, stuff like Barbie, which had a really positive reception overall, there was definitely some backlash to it, but it was overall positively received. That's still made by, like, a massive media conglomerate. and that conglomerate
Yeah.
has corporate interests, and like that conglomerate is always going to try to cut corners. They're going to try and put in the lowest amount of work possible. And it doesn't matter if you only reward movies you think are good. They're still going to have that like corner cutting profit motive. They're not going to
And
be
it,
motivated to like make movies more true to their creative vision. Like
and
at
speaking of
most they're
art,
going to get
speaking of
at most they're going to get better at hiding the flaws in the projects they make, or greenlight I should say, instead of just actually making them better. And in my
right,
opinion, it's just such a misguided way to look at things, because if you really want like people's creative visions to succeed, and like you want like this whole like media to landscape to be healthier, you can't rely on the free market. You can't badger people into trying to make the free market work. It's not about that. You have to look into alternative structures for like film. You have to look into, I don't know, like bolstering unions, because unions
yeah,
are probably one of the biggest forces in making stuff better. Um and
right,
like because the film crews because these film crews who are so passionate also come together and demand and hold the companies to account. And that, I mean, you wouldn't have that if like companies didn't like, own like IPs and like weren't making the movies. But like all these
right,
crews have these unions and these groups and these guilds where they come together and they demand better of the companies because they want to make these movies good. So if you
yeah,
want good movies, instead of like acting like we're just going to dismiss some outright for being these quote unquote slop, why don't we look to the people who are working, you know, on these movies, trying to make them as good as they can be, and sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. Why don't we look towards those people and support their efforts? Like, we don't lose anything from having, better processes for which movies are made, better means of making the movies like properly like cared for, and like, and have them
yeah.
like be creatively like, I don't know, fulfilled and like whatever. Like
To go back
we
to
we
what you
lose
said
nothing
about,
from that. We And it doesn't make sense to exclude stuff like Marvel movies from this, because if we have like a better union landscape, a healthier film industry, like whether a movie is under the Marvel umbrella or not, it's generally going to be it's going to be better. Like obviously there's
yeah,
still going to be bad movies because people make mistakes, but like the production process is going to be a lot smoother, or not smoother, I should say. It's going to be better. It's going to be more like constructive. It's going to be more of a fun experience for everyone involved. And when people are having fun making the movies, and they usually are, and when they know they're in control, when they don't have these overbearing corporate overlords, they're going to have more fun even, and they're going to make better projects because they're going to imbue more of that into the projects. And this
yeah,
goes for
and
anything that's part of an IP film. And now, don't get me wrong, I do want to clarify real quick. I think IP should practically be abolished. So I think that any studio should be allowed to make movies that like kind of build off like these sort of like famous settings like Marvel or DC or Star Wars. I think that would be incredible because I want to see what different people have like to bring to the table. Like at the end of the
yeah,
day though, Marvel is just an IP. Like the MCU is an IP, which yes, has a lot of like bad corporate connotations, but it is just like it's a brand, but it is also a world. It's like a framework for conceptualizing stories, like just like Star
yeah,
Wars is. It's like a place where like you can create amazing stories. Like Andor, for example. We mentioned Andor. Andor is an
hmm,
incredible use of the Star Wars setting to tell something like emotionally like revenant, or maybe not revenant, resonant is the right word.
yeah,
To tell something emotionally resonant, something powerful, something meaningful with a lot of artistic value, a lot to say, and it's under the Star Wars umbrella. There's no reason why Marvel projects can't do the same. To an extent, they have. Guardians does that. To an extent, Black Panther does that, both the movies. Eternals does that. To varying success. I, again, have my criticism of the story, but, and there's other movies where this is, where there's examples
yeah,
of this.
and
Like
even
Deadpool and
and
Wolverine tries to address themes. You can debate on how well it does those. I think it's pretty good. And it addresses those
yeah,
pretty well. And
and
again, I like that
I'm,
movie. But my whole
and even
point
some of
is
the,
like there's so much like untapped artistic value if we simply accept that this isn't a lost cause from the start because it's a big IP, and we move towards a more equitable industry where like we're not giving it all to one company. We're letting filmmakers do what they want with it. We abolish IP. We let people like play with the world as they wish. We see what comes out with it, the good and the bad, because at least it will be interesting. And we stop and we stop having this pretense of like, oh, it's Marvel, so it's slop. No, it can be great. It can be wonderful, and you should be wanting it to be great. Like, even if you don't like Marvel and you don't have an interest, no one loses anything from movies being good and movies being like impactful and resonant. Like, this is what we want in the industry. We want strong unions. We want like strong, healthy environments for filmmaking. We want creative freedom. We want people to have the ability to go and take these stories and make beautiful things from them. That's what we want. We don't want to cast things aside and just permanently like condemn them to the dustbin of history for being cursed or whatever. Like, we can build off of this. We can make it better. We just need to focus our energy in the right places. Stop relying on the free market. Support unions. Support creatives. Listen to them when they tell you what will make things better, and you will have a better palette of media to enjoy. You will have, maybe not even better, just a more robust, more healthy palette of media that's made through more healthy means. And you'll feel better about that. You'll just enjoy it more, even if it's not to your personal taste, because you'll know that the environment behind it is so much better. Like,
Right, yeah, and on top of that, like two things as well. One thing I was reminded of in all that is another good example of a Marvel project that I think actually does do a lot of good, even though it kind of like stumbles in areas. I think Miss Marvel doesn't get a lot of credit for what it does, because basically that show is like nearly peak. Everything that drags it down is the 6 episode limit and the villains. Those are where all the issues from the show stem from. But when you take that away and you focus on what the show does right, it works very well. Even the stuff that it feels like should have been saved for season 2, mainly revolving around this Karachi subplot, it actually has a lot of merit to it because it brings a very real human perspective regarding like Pakistani identity following the partition, which, by the way, I did not know what the fucking partition was until I watched Miss Marvel. That is a whole piece of history where, like, that affected thousands of human lives that I, a stupid American, was unaware was even a thing until I watched that show. So even when the Marvel stuff doesn't 100% stick the landing, it can still it can still be used as a springboard to not only show people things that they might not have known about otherwise, but also inspire them to look at things from different perspectives and histories. And on top of that, like you said earlier about the whole,
that's exactly what I'm saying. These things are springboards. They're frameworks through which to like build stories upon, upon like these pre-existing things, like, because they can be like built upon to like create like these resonant like sub stories and like stories that branch off, and like everyone should have a part in doing that. Like, this is why I'm going on record saying this, because I truly intend for this. I'd have to obviously talk about it with like the people who I'm working on this with, but like the Jonathan Crisis, which is like a fictional universe I'm creating. It's like a fleshed out thing. We're trying to like do the world building for it right now, and we plan for about ideally about 20 books in the mainline series going across this story we have planned, and it's set in this world. And my intent right now is, okay, technically I will be trademarking the Jonathan Crisis, or I probably will, but only so that no one else does it first and then abuse it against people. So I'll just hold on to it and do nothing with it to enforce it, just so that like someone can't like just get it instead of me and then like use it to bully other people. If that makes sense. Basically what I want to do is I want to make it completely fine. I never want to enforce it ever, because I want people to take this world that we're putting out there and work with it. I want people to take this world and make their own stories with it. And I don't care if they profit off of it, because they're adding their own artistic input onto it. They're not plagiarizing me. Like, obviously, if someone fucking plagiarizes me and, like, wholesale rips off my writing, then that's a problem. But if you just take the basic concept of the world and, like, take some of the characters and, like, do your own spin and do your, like, and, like, put your own vision on it, I think that adds to the world more than anything, and I want that to exist. I don't want
Yeah.
sole ownership of my work. Like,
And on top
in
of
my
that, like,
opinion, like, I know that some writers have this idea of like, it's my world to write, it's not yours to play with. Like, for example, I'm reading Wheel of Time. Robert Jordan, reportedly did not like fan fiction because he thought that like the reader's job was to read. Like, he'd already done the writing, and he didn't think that they were entitled to
huh,
like come up with their own stories. No
wow.
disrespect to him. I think that's a pretty bad mindset, though, personally. And it's
To
the
quote, to
complete
quote,
opposite of my mindset. I
to
personally
quote,
think people writing fanfic of my work is one of the most aspirational things. It means my stuff resonated with someone so that they wanted to use it to create their own story. And they created something of value out of something I made. I think that's beautiful. That's what I
yeah,
want.
for sure. And I think
Because
as well,
I
yeah,
view
is
my work as a gift to the world. Like, this sounds
to
really
quote,
narcissistic, or not narcissistic, egotistical is a better way of putting it. It sounds like I'm kind of sniffing my own farts here, but I'm just saying, I think it's a gift. Like, I think I want to offer something to the world that's something that other people can use and build upon. I don't want to
yeah,
just have this thing shown to the world and then be like, nope, but it's mine. You can't play with it. It's only my toy. You know, that feels counterintuitive to the point of sharing it. I want people to work
yeah,
with it. I want people to build upon it. That is my aspiration. I would love it. It's beautiful to me. It adds to the.
yeah.
It can only add. It. No one can lose from it, in my opinion. Like,
Right. And
that's
I
the big
think as
thing.
well,
Sorry, go on.
and
I
I
just
think
wanted to finish that point.
yeah, and so I have a few things to say, but I think one of the things, yeah, when it comes to, so first off, in regards to that author, to quote, like in this idea of like it's the reader's place to read and not create in relation to his stuff. To quote an Anthony Gramuglia video, I think this is an ass backwards take. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah,
But
I don't like the take at all. I respect his rights to have that take. I just don't agree with it.
yeah, but back to the other thing I also wanted to say. You brought up earlier how yeah, the whole point of this is that calling things slop over and over again and calling things peak and relying on that free market isn't always going to get us anywhere. And I actually think there's a perfect way to showcase how even if we support things that are broadly considered good, that's not always a recipe for success because if you recall when the Barbie movie did very well, what was Mattel's response to the success of that film? Was it, oh, we need to let more creative people into our studio to approach our IPs or work with others, or oh, we should elevate more creative voices in female demographics, or oh, we should do this and that? No, their response was Barbie was successful. Barbie is a Mattel brand. Let's announce Mattel movies based on Mattel toy products. And it's like, no,
This is a great
that's
point that I didn't think to bring up. And you're really touching
that's
on something important here. Even
yeah,
if we reward these good movies, um, even if we reward these great movies, that happen to be made by like certain brands or like certain big companies, even if we reward them, those ticket sales, those massive profits, uh, those companies are not going to take the correct lessons from them because they always have this do the least profit motive where they want to cut corners. They're always going to look at the easiest possible way to replicate the success of even their best movies. They're never going to come away with the take that, oh, well, maybe we should just make more great movies then. No, they're going to look for the most superficial aspects of what made those movies great, and they're going to try to replicate those because that's the easiest thing to do. It's the lowest common denominator, and that's what makes them their money. So,
right.
you are exactly right. Like, even if we use this free market strategy that's deeply flawed to try and like reward good behavior, they're gonna get they're gonna get the wrong idea. It's like, I think this was from Star Trek. I've never really tapped into Star Trek, but I have heard this be said. I think I saw a Reddit post that was like, examples of characters taking the wrong lessons from moral parables. And one example someone brought up was a character from Star Trek hearing the boy who cried wolf tale. You know, the one about how like the boy keeps
Yeah,
lying about wolves, and then when they actually come, like
no one believes
no
him.
one listens. the point of that story is obviously don't lie. But the point that this character gets from the story is actually never tell the same lie twice.
Huh.
And that's
Interesting.
like, that's technically a valid interpretation. That's technically advice you can glean from that. That's not necessarily an incorrect reading. And that's kind of the same thing that these corporations will do with like their successful movies. They'll look at the most superficial reason a movie could have succeeded and they'll replicate that. Because
Yeah.
they fundamentally don't want to go towards like putting more effort into their stuff, or like, I guess, they don't want to allow like the creatives to cook as much on their stuff. Like,
Right.
they just want the easiest possible solution to everything. And the fact, and no matter how many great movies you quote unquote reward, it's not going to change that output because it's fundamental to how capitalism works. Like, the only way you change that is by fighting the structure itself, which is what unions do, or by like outright reforming it or like replacing it with something else. But that's like such a bigger conversation, and I don't really see that happening in the near future.
Yeah.
So for now, we just want to rely on like union action and like trying to make the place as equitable as it can be under this current system. But like, if we just free market like raw dog this bullshit, it's not gonna work. Like, I'm sorry to tell you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to add
100.
anything on to that point, but
Well, yeah,
yeah.
no, I agree. I think it's one of those things where with like the state of, and there's actually, yeah, I know I tend to take a lot of quotes, but there's another quote I've just remembered. I saw a High Top Films video talking about Thunderbolts and how he genuinely liked the movie and appreciated what it did. And he had a great point about how people are going to see this film and cry and saying that Marvel is back. Marvel was never gone, baby. They're still here. They're just like a bit inconsistent. And I agree with that point. Marvel isn't back. It never left. We just think it didn't because we don't like some of their movies or because this or that. And some people might have the interpretation that yeah, they didn't leave because they were always shit. And I don't agree with that interpretation, but all right, fine, whatever. With this kind of stuff, even if we reward good behavior from corporations, they're probably going to find some way to get the wrong message out of it. Like, like, we've proven how manipulatable corporations can be in these circumstances and like how they don't understand some stuff with fucking Morbius, because that movie
That's
became a
so fucking
goddamn
funny.
that became a goddamn meme, and corporations thought, oh, it's so popular, ironically, that people are going to go see it. So Sony re-released it, only for, I think, the re-release to make less money than the initial release, which is hilarious if I'm remembering that correctly. And then to top it all off, the creme de la creme of all the fucking movies that could have gotten that meme crowd, it was Minions 2 Rise of Gru a few weeks or months later with the fucking Gentle Minions meme on TikTok of dudes in suits showing up to watch the movie. And what's funny is, not only was having seen both, I'm gonna say this, not only was Rise of Gru the better movie, but even though that Gentle Minions trend ended kind of poorly, given that some people were using it as an excuse to act like dicks, kind of almost like in a weird way, like a prequel, not exactly the same, but like a prequel to the chicken jockey shit.
Yeah.
It's though no theaters were destroyed to my knowledge. But it's interesting, I think. It showcases that even when studios think they have something, they will like get shit wrong. A lot of these kinds of successes happen when it's the people that decide stuff. Like Barbenheimer and the success of Rise of Gru through memes and all this and that. That was through people outside the corporation coming up with it and attaching themselves to stuff. And don't get me wrong, I think when certain people within corporations lean into the bit, it can be fun. Like, I love that Thunderbolts put out a trailer called Absolute Cinema in all caps, where the editing was like an A24 trailer and they just highlighted the indie shit that the creators worked on. I thought that was great. And I want to see that kind of fun expression with this stuff. It's why I love it's one of the reasons I love shows like Phineas and Ferb, where they're just so allowed to be themselves and be great. Which, by the way, I am not done with it yet, but I've seen the first 4 episodes of the new season. It's fucking amazing. It's not just reheated leftovers. It's genuinely great, classic Phineas and Ferb stuff. But yeah, and oh no, that's another good example of how this ties into this stuff. Because when you hear that like Phineas and Ferb is getting a new thing after it already ended, there is a question of, do we need this? And I agree to some sense, but if it's done well, who gives a shit at the end of the day? It's a good, even if it's not the most original thing ever, it's still good. We can still get good stuff out of like recycling ideas. That's kind of the point of recycling, is to make something new and interesting or good out of it, even if it's still the same thing. Even if it stays the same thing, to keep using it, to not just throw it out to pasture just because it seems like we've used it all. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, I might have gotten a little off track, but I do agree that, yeah, if people keep trying to play ball with the studios in that sense of like, okay, even if, I'm going to be blunt, even if we only supported like highbrow indie films, we would still not be in the best spot, because then that's all anybody would want to make from a corporate level, and fun blockbuster films that work on their own, regardless of if they're the best thing ever, would disappear as well. And in addition to that, I'm just thinking of this now. Wait, fuck, where was I going with this? I had a train of thought. Um, but yeah, what I also have to say this, by the way, guys. Like, some people really need to hear this. A24 is not a perfect company. Like, because a lot of people, when they think indie and like highbrow cinema, they just kind of default to A24, I think, because that's the most mainstream company that makes that kind of stuff. Guys, A24 makes mistakes. Not all of their movies are the biggest smash hit. And if you want proof of this, look at Civil War, not the Captain America movie, just the film Civil War, which was advertised, which when it came out, now I haven't seen the film. It could be great for all I know. But when it came out, it confused a lot of people, because judging by the trailers, they thought it was like, oh, this is going to be some genuinely interesting commentary on like what America is headed toward, even if it's fantasized. But then when the actual film was really, I believe, about like the apathy that war photographers end up gaining through their job, and like their indifference to crazy shit going on because of the trauma, or like the chaos with it all. And it didn't really do a good job of explaining its politics or how it got to the point that it did. To a lot of people, that was confusing and weird, because it's like, wait, this is the movie we're getting? And oh, by the way, the film used generative AI in some of its posters. So
Yeah.
yeah, like let's not act.
Not good.
I don't love this idea that, like, I'm telling you now, I say this as an independent animator. Indie is not some magic word that makes everything good. You still have to put in like effort and take care of things well, and not every single indie thing is going to find perfect success. And I know this because I just saw this recently. There was a cartoon, an animated pilot, that I saw being advertised, that had a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter, and a lot of people thought, okay, this looks good or cute. I saw an animated podcast thing advertising it, and the creator talking about what they hope to do with it. And I figured, oh, cool, with the success of stuff like not only, Glitch Productions, but certain other GoFundMes for animated stuff reaching their completion. Like this one creator I follow, who's creating this movie called The Ebony Witch, which looks really fun. This project I'm thinking of, I can't remember the name of it. It was some kind of like cosmic cartoon with like a star, like a space setting, but it did not get funded, despite technically doing everything right for advertising an indie project. So indie is not some magic word that makes all these problems disappear. And even if Marvel was indie, that doesn't mean the films would just be automatically good. Like and again, I'm not saying, like I said earlier, I don't think writing is the only thing people should judge something for. But even if everything was done technically well, if the writing is still not the best, like even if Thor the Dark World was shot like an A24 film with its mid script, it would still not be the best thing ever made. Like, it would still probably be ranked as one of the lower MCU films, even if it did everything right directorially, because its story was so half-baked due to production troubles. And like, I don't love this idea that just because something is indie doesn't automatically does like it automatically makes this thing better than what teams of people under these studios put out, even though in actuality the true things can be true at the same time. And some of our favorite movies are made by these fucking studios. Like, one of the most influential movies in my life is Kung Fu Panda. That first film is one of the defining movies of my entire existence. I hold that film in a very high regard to what it taught me as a kid, what it means to me as a kid and an adult, and what it means for like animation and for DreamWorks history. But it was made by DreamWorks, a studio that I think was basically, from everything I've heard, it was partially founded out of spite by one of it, or at least co-founded out of spite against Disney, because one of the people behind DreamWorks, Jeffrey Katzenberg, worked at Disney, and when he was in charge of the animation scene, he was not a perfect boss. He led to successes like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Little Mermaid and started the Disney Renaissance, but he didn't spend a ton of time in the studio every week, and he bred like this environment of you either rise to the challenge we give you or you're out of the studio and out of a job. And on top of that, after like an important CEO at Disney died, he like wanted credit, like he became obsessed with like full credit for certain projects and stuff, and kind of wanted to become like the new figurehead for Disney. And that led to Michael Eisner letting him go after Lion King because he was just kind of being selfish. But that inadvertently led him to make DreamWorks with Spielberg and Geffen. I don't remember the guy's first name, but it was a guy with a last name named Geffen, which is where DreamWorks SKG comes from. It's Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen. But yeah, that's kind of my point, is that Kung Fu Panda, a peak movie, in my opinion, same as the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, which I think is my favorite trilogy ever made. Those are some of my favorite animated films of all time, and they were made by a studio that was technically founded out of spite, by a studio that still makes corporate decisions, even if it has art as a key forefront of its stuff. Like, not
And
every single...
I mean, for me,
Yeah,
there's
go ahead.
also The Mitchells versus the Machines. I thought was a greatly
Yes.
like moving movie. That's by Sony, which we were complaining about the corporate side of Sony early on in this podcast.
Yeah,
They also made the
100%.
Spider-Verse movies under their belt.
Right.
So again, just being affiliated with this brand doesn't mean the movie's going to be shit, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
for other examples, there's there's DreamWorks. DreamWorks has made some incredible movies. Pixar has made some incredible movies despite the fact that they're under Disney, and they also have made a lot of quote unquote slop. I don't know if I'd ever really describe a Pixar movie as like
I wouldn't
lame
even
or boring, but
I wouldn't even call Cars 2 slop, and that's a film that a lot of people think is Pixar's worst. Even I wouldn't call that movie slop at all, because
I
despite
wouldn't call it slop because it's a fun. It's like a fun. It's like a peak fun bad experience in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and there's and what's funny is, even though it's technically like a bad film, it still has a lot of effort put into it, because the animation and action in that movie is unironically great. Like, it's got so much
Yeah,
good shit
right.
in it, despite being such a like conceptually like what the fuck kind of film, that I can't even call it slop, because like this has effort put into it. And even here's another good example. I remember this earlier. I was thinking about bringing it up earlier. Have you heard of the adult cartoon Xavier Renegade Angel?
I
Cartoon.
have. I've never seen it, but I have heard of it.
I have seen it now. It's on HBO Max for free. It's an old Adult Swim show from like the early 2000s, I think. And it's in CGI. Having seen it, it's so interesting how its visuals are complete dog shit. From an animation perspective, it's technically, in a weird way, garbage compared to the standards of other stuff. But because that's kind of the point, it works to its advantage, and the writing in that show is fucking hilarious. there are so many great bits from that show that have been turned into memes because like even though because the uncanny dog shit animation, that feels like an artistic choice because it adds to the comedy of a bit. Like there's a line in it where I don't remember what episode this is, but there's a line where someone walks up to Xavier and she's like, "I lost my baby," and he's like, "Tragic." Or something. I'm trying to think. Tragic. I have children myself. Makes me feel good about being a good parent. You should try it sometime. Like he doesn't even try to help the woman who's like, "I lost my baby." He's just like, "Yeah, well, I'm better at you than this job." Like there's so many great bits like that through the show. If you do yourself a favor at some point, to anybody watching this, or even just do yourself a favor and look up the Xavier Renegade. It's from like season 2, I think, or maybe I don't know. But look up the Xavier Renegade Angel, either the "Do you believe in God" conversation or the it's like an argument he has with himself. There's a scene of two Xaviers where they're arguing back and forth with each other and basically making what feels like your mom jokes for most of it. It's not just that, but that's the vibe it is, and it still works. So like the point is, even when something is like absolutely, it just goes to show you never know like how crazy this stuff is. Like not every single animated thing made by a corporation is slop, and not every single indie thing is Murder Drones or Amazing Digital Circus or the next 2D thing. And I will say as well, as much as I want to see more 2D animated films in Western media, I'd love if we went back to more 2D. I I don't want 3D to stop. I don't love this idea that like 2D is automatically superior just because 3D films are made more. No, it's that like, and this is coming from a 2D animator. I don't want to give up 3D
As
because
a
there's some
3D
amazing.
animator, I agree with you because
Yeah,
it's my fucking you know, if we stop
yeah.
making 3D animated stuff, that's kind of my entire passion
Yeah,
fucked.
and honestly, you're in a better position than me right now, at least if you want to get jobs with that shit. Because I will say this, I am in agreement. I have seen multiple animators talk about this on Blue Sky. The animation job market right now is absolutely borked. It is fucked beyond belief right now. There are
Yeah,
no jobs.
I would
It's
say
so
it's not
bad.
even cooked is not a word that is good enough to describe it. It's like it's toasted. It's completely roasted.
Yeah, and
Like
so
that's the vibe I've been getting.
and that kind of actually circles back to the point you were making of how, like, hey, here's a good example of something that could be changed for the better. Something that this is why I hate these fucking animators are so lazy. Cartoons then versus cartoons now. It's like every single time I see one of those people talking about, like, why is this animated show not the same style as this animated show? I'm like, first of all, not every show is the same style. Get the hell over it. And second of all, gee, I don't know. Maybe because, as we've already discussed like a billion fucking times, it's because people in this industry are getting mistreated. It's the same thing as on Twitter. The same fucking like, why does this $215 million movie look like that? Because fucking VFX animators are treated poorly. We've been over this like 20 fucking times, and nobody has done enough of like a big change for it. Push for change for this shit, and you won't have those $250 million movies that do this and that. Because I'm sick of this fucking merry-go-round of like, we just keep saying the $250 million movie with an out of context bad green screen shot. Why does it look like this? 20 articles like, we've been known this. VFX people get screwed over. We should do something about this. Nothing happens. Rinse and repeat. It's so fucking frustrating. Like, I agree with you. Instead of constantly going back and forth on this like slop shit, just like let's talk about more unions and actually fixing shit. Please. Like, oh god, I went off there. That pissed me off more than I thought it did. But
No,
yeah,
understandably
that
so, because it's a ridiculous circus. It's not a circus I'd call amazing. Let's just say that.
No, 100%. But it is digital. It's definitely a digital thing so far. So,
But is it the?
uh, and on that note, yeah, I don't really have much else to say, but yeah, I think this has been, yeah, unless you have other stuff you want to discuss before we start closing
Yeah, I
out.
mean, I think I'm ready to wrap up as well. We've been going for about 3 hours, so that's a really good episode, podcast episode length.
Yeah, I mean, it's shorter than our usual conversations where we just prattle on about we prattle on about what we're working for 5 minutes, and then we're like, do you think X and X something something Thunderbolts? What about this thing with real world politics? Like we just go off onto the most
yeah, dead
sometimes it's
fucking
related.
ass. Yeah.
The
I guess the main thing I just want to end off on this, just to summarize, like, push for actual change, man. Like,
yeah,
instead of having these arguments dismissing entire, like, dismissing entire, like, studio's output is just slop because you don't like them, and, like, acting like there's no creative value. Look for the creative value in these things and make change to make those things brighter. Okay? It's like,
yeah,
I have a great metaphor I just thought up on the spot for this. I'm really proud of this. So when you look up in the night sky and you see pinpricks that are the stars, in the infinite blackness of space, you don't look at the blackness of space. You don't look at the empty expanse and just be like, wow, that empty expanse is so fucking boring. It fucking sucks. No. You look at the stars. You look at the pinpricks of what's beautiful, and you say, I wonder how I can make those brighter. And obviously, in this case, you can't really make the stars brighter. That's kind of out of your control. But as a metaphor,
right,
it works for this sort of industry thing, where, like, you can organize and, like, donate to unions, and, like, here's what I'm trying to say. Look to the creatives in the industry and support them because they want things to be good just as much as you do. It doesn't matter if it's Marvel, if it's DC, if it's Star Wars, if it's Star Trek, if it's fucking Mission Impossible, if it's James Bond, if it's I was gonna say Harry Potter, but that's kind of its own beast considering all the J.K. Rowling stuff. But
right.
if it's
We don't
Lord of the
have
Rings,
time for a fucking art versus artist
if
conversation.
it's fucking Lord of the Rings, if it's fucking, I don't know, The Wheel of Time, I'm running out of media properties. Who cares, right? Like, no matter what umbrella it technically exists under, the creatives in this industry want it to be good as much as you do, if not more, because it's their lives. They commit themselves to this stuff. They care about this stuff. So look for them, look at the bright stars that are shining, and ask what can be done to make them shine brighter, to stand out amongst that infinite void of darkness.
I agree. Yeah, I got nothing else to say. I'm basically in the same boat. Yeah, instead of constantly just doing the same merry-go-round, try to do shit that feels more productive. And honestly, I was just scrolling through, like, I remembered something, so I was going through, like, one of our conversations, and I remembered you linking me the Critical Drinker Thunderbolts video to talk about how ass it was. And so now I have sort of my own analogy to end on. If it gives you the Marvel cringe, then just leave it alone and move on to something better already, for fuck's sake. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's something there, but
that's not even really a metaphor. That's just a desperate plea at this point.
Actually, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's just like a please, I beg you moment. But
that video gave me the critical drinker cringe, as one comment put it.
Yeah, the critical drinker cringe. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I think that works. As a Scottish, listen, drinker, we're both Scotsmen in a sense, even though I barely acknowledge my fucking Scottish heritage most of the time. As a Scottish descent man, I guess, I'm telling you now, man, this is not the Scottish way. In a world of critical drinkers, be Flynn McAllister. Probably no one's gonna get that reference, but I don't give a shit.
That's the I'm
Anyway,
Scottish guy from like that one Power Rangers clip, right?
yes, Flynn McAllister from
I'm gonna
RPM.
fucking link that in the video. Bet.
Great, please do so. It's amazing if you have, even if you're not a fan of Power Rangers, watch it. I promise it's worth it.
If you want to watch
But
something that's
yeah,
not slop, watch the one clip of Flynn McAllister yelling, "I'm Scottish."
correct. It's amazing in and out of context.
I mean, that's highbrow art right there. I mean, I think that's where we end the debate.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, in that case, I'm ready to just close out if you are.
Yep, same here. This has
All
been a
right. I
great
guess
discussion, honestly. Yeah. It
yeah,
went to
yeah,
places
I
I
guess
didn't expect it to go, but like it all ended up serving the point, which is nice.
yeah, I think for the most part it stayed relatively focused. There were a few things that like dragged on a little off course, but it all came back around to the context. If I'm remembering correctly. So, all of it did kind of serve the whole, even if it splintered off in a few directions. And hopefully that's what the
Hopefully
rest
that's
of
what the
this
MCU looks like in a few years.
exactly. I
It's
mean,
actually
I
all been
do
a
have
very clever layered metaphor from the start. Like we actually deliberately planned this. This entire
yeah.
this entire podcast was actually scripted. All the words that we've been reading came from a carefully
Yes.
written screenplay. So
Exactly. My stutters, your multiple usages of the word like, we totally scripted all of it down in Word and through a Google Doc. It was planned from the start. Like the fuck, I feel like I had a really good expanded universe joke here for a second, and then I
that was
completely just
actually
brain
also
farted.
scripted. That was also scripted. It was meant to be. It was like that Marvel kind of like, oh, that sounded so much better in my head kind of humor. We put that in very deliberately.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, I guess is this the time for last minute plugs, or did we kind of already do that
Yeah, sure.
earlier?
Why not?
Yeah, I'll just throw out my basic stuff. Yeah, I'm American Elephant. Call me Kevin. Thanks for having me. Follow me on my YouTube channel. I'm at Elephant Power Productions. If you like the stuff I have to say, you might like my overly edited Kev Talks videos or my animations because I do like making. And this kind of ties into what you said earlier about IP. A lot of what I want to make on my channel is fan animations. So yeah, I hope and to tell stories in pre-existing universe with like fan ideas and originality. So maybe if you like what I had to say about that stuff, you might like the animations I've already created. I'm on Instagram as American Elephant Insta, DeviantArt is American Elephant. I got a Wattpad under the same name, Blue Sky as well. I got a website, elephantpowerart.com, if you want to see some of my stuff from college. And yeah, I think that's it in terms of my side of things. So yeah, this has been a great
Yeah, and I
conversation.
don't really need to plug because you're already here. Like you
Right.
know where I am. But
Yeah. Sweet.
yeah,
So,
please do follow Kevin on whatever you can follow him on because he's great.
thank you.
So
And
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. It's been a long one. It's been about as long as the last episode with Vex, but you know, um, it is what it is. Sometimes you get engrossed in the conversation. It just kind of that's how the cookie crumbles. That's how the cookie crumbles.
Correct.
Um, um, yeah. So, thank you very much for watching once again, and I'll see you all next time. We both will. Because I imagine this will not be the last time I have Kevin on the podcast.
Oh,
Um,
I definitely want to do this again. Yeah, I'm sure. Especially if we got multiple people. I think that'll make shit even more interesting with like the perspectives and
100%, 100%.
even the comedy potential as well. Like there's
Oh
so many
yeah,
people
it's
we could
great. Like
bring in.
some of those old Hunger Games live streams had like multiple people on them, and I think we
We
should
should
do
do
those again. There
yeah,
was one
we should
Among
try
Us lore read aloud, which is people who frequently
hmm.
follow this will know what that is. Um, uh, and there were like three people on it, myself, A, and LBP, and the chemistry was just off the charts,
I
like
I
the
also
back and forth. But yeah,
I also have a recommendation. I think it would be really funny if we did like a try not to laugh challenge where we share clips back and forth between however many people we have. Like we take turns sharing memes we found, regardless of if we've seen them or not, to try and make each other laugh. I know it's difficult without like the face
that's a good
cam
one.
a
Yeah,
lot a lot of the time.
that's a good idea.
I have no problem doing that on face cam. Like that's one of those cases where I'm like, oh, I'd love to do that because then you can see my just trying to keep it together.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Anyway, yeah. For the last time, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.